Thanks so much for joining us today. We're here for Cosmic Conversations. The three of us are here with all of you to talk about all kinds of things cosmic. We're open for all kinds of conversation, and we want it to be a multiple dimensional conversation of all of us together. We've got us up on stage that we are recording, and we are going to post it on our YouTube channel. If you want, when you want to talk about something, you can come up on stage with us. You can be in the audience, totally up to you. And if people want to, actually, I think after we introduce ourselves, if you all want to in the audience, you can introduce yourself too and talk about like what your background is in metaphysics, what your interest is, and like if you came today to talk about a particular thing, just an optional thing that we could do. Um, let's have all three of us introduce ourselves so you know a bit about who we are and the context that we bring to this. And then we're here to be together. If you find that you want, what am I trying to say? If you We're here for general conversation and deep conversation about a range of topics. If you want to talk about something that's personal, there is a way that we can support you, and there's an extra fee for that. And I'll put that info in the chat too. But mostly we're here for conversation. Kai or Crystal, does one of you want to jump in and share about yourselves, or what do you want to do?
Sure. My name is Crystal Novak. I'm a psychic reader. I also am a conscious channel and I also do energy work. Been doing this for over 40 years. Um, and essentially, uh, information just comes to me. And primarily in a knowingness fashion. Some of it's auditory, some of it's clairsentient, but for the most part, it's primarily knowingness. And it's effortless for the most part. I mean, it just, yeah. So basically, that's what I say. I just know stuff. Um, and have a wide variety of stuff that I've studied that I'm interested in. So I have a varied background of knowledge and information and experience. I'm happy to talk about any of that if we get to any of that. And I think as Laureli kind of mentioned when we first started, when I'm at the brick and mortar events, and Kai often is as well, sometimes we're ended up sitting by each other. And if things are slow, then we just turn to each other and start talking about stuff. And um, since we both have different levels of experience and modalities, then it's really fascinating because Kyle say something, I'm like, what? And we start this whole conversation, or vice versa. And so it's very interesting um, to share from those points. And so it became this event that we do here online. Um, so hopefully you guys know it's all interactive and we want you to participate, please, because that's what we're here for. So uh, don't think that you don't have anything to add because that's not true at all. Everybody has something to bring to the table. So please jump in and talk about stuff or ask questions or whatever. So I'm done.
Okay. So I'm Bertrand. I am a Hawaiian Kahuna, which is the Hawaiian version of a shaman. And I have been doing some sort of paranormal, spiritual stuff ever since I was an infant, according to my mother. And therefore, there's not a lot that I haven't seen. There's not a lot I haven't done. And I always like to learn more. And so that's part of the reason why I wanted to do this, because every time I talk to Crystal, she tells me something and I go, what? I need to look at that. What is that about? Because it gives me an opportunity to look at something from a different angle than what I had seen before. Because I've trained with different shamans and they gave me the perspective of different types of traditions, which
Mhm.
I love. Because, I grew up in a certain way. We only have our perception that we grew up with. Like we have our filter through which we see things. When I work with other people, I get to see the same thing in a different way, which then expands my awareness and
Mhm.
just makes me a better healer, a better person, um, much more understanding and able to put myself in other people's shoes, which I think a lot of people lack. And so that gives me a broader perspective of things and keeps me open to learn more stuff. Because yeah, I am constantly like, what is that? What is that? How does that work? What does that feel like? Huh, let me check that out. Wonder what happens if I do this.
Mhm.
I love that stuff.
Yeah.
And so in having these types of conversations, that allows me to do that. And that allows other people to do that as well. Because you may not do things the way I do them, but you may take that same concept, whatever we talked about, and tweak it in your own way to use it for whatever you use things for, or use it in whatever way works for you. And that's really what I'm looking for. It's like the expansion of knowledge and helping other people to not be afraid to expand their knowledge in their own way, in their own time. So yeah, that's really what I want to do here, and that's what I'm doing here, and that's why I wanted to do this. So please, if there's something that you want to ask about, or you're curious about, or you're just like, what the heck is that? Then ask, because I may not know what it is, but because I'm also connected, like Crystal is, I can ask my guides, what is that? And
Mhm.
she can ask her guides, what is that? And we might get two different answers, but it would be focused on the same thing. And then that broadens the knowledge base for all of us. So that brings new perspective on everything. So yeah, definitely bring whatever you got.
Bring it.
How fun. It's so interesting hearing the two of you talk about all this stuff because I guess really part of what I end up doing is like I film myself with like I'm so busy, I'm doing all these things that I don't actually play with this stuff very much. So running these events is my opportunity where I get like, okay, pause, don't do all these other things mostly. Like I'm multitasking with someone else that's coming. And I get to play with more of this stuff. So I don't try things on in the same ways that you do. And well, I'm Laureli. I'm an intuitive eye reader, body psychology coach, and matchmaker. I pick up a lot of stuff in my body, but I love listening to you, Kai, of the way you like try things on in your body and really like play with stuff. I think the things that you all do, I don't pick things up in the same way, and I've never really tried to maybe pick things up in the same ways that I think you do. That just seems to be so different than me. And but like when I look at people's eyes, um, part of it was the learning, like a scientific learning for me, and learning different patterns. And so part of it is pattern recognition, and um, then there's a way that I just feel things too, like kind of feeling into the person, and feeling is like the most general way to talk about it. But yeah, I don't quite know what I'm doing and what I'm picking up, and if I imagine something about the person when they're young, like imagine, am I seeing it, and is it clear seeing, and am I connecting energetically in some way that I don't even know what I'm doing? I don't know how much of it's similar that I don't even realize. I end up not talking that much with other people about all this stuff until we get together and we do these things and I hear more about it. That's part of what I love about this time when we're all together and talking about all these things. I was a big student for a long time about a lot of different things in my life, like ceramics or the queer community, or just, all kinds of autism. I was helping raise someone with autism, then years later discover that I'm autistic myself. Like, but I've never really done it with this field except for the narrow thing that I know. So I just realized all the ways I've not been such a student. So all these ways I could be so much more of a student as I hear and I have, right, these conversations with all of you. Oh yeah, I'm here for wherever we go. It's we have more people coming, I know, so it's great fun when there's lots of us and
Mhm.
we go places I have no idea where it will be.
Yeah.
So yeah. So this is us. What do you all think of that idea of letting everybody introduce themselves? You two okay with it?
I'm okay
Kai and
with it
Crystal?
if people want to.
Okay, great. We got more people coming. So if there's someone in the audience that wants to do a short introduction and tell us who you are and what your connection is in metaphysics and like why did you choose to come to this event? Is there a particular thing that you want to get from being here? You are welcome to do that. Just keep in mind that it is recorded, that it is going on our YouTube channel. And if you want, you can choose to come up on stage with us as you introduce yourself, or you could do it from your chair. I know you just arrived. We're just doing, we just introduced ourselves. And this is just open conversation, open discussion. If someone wants to go in the direction of a personal question and really wants support, there's an extra fee for that. But just conversation, and it can be wild, deep conversation about all kinds of things. That's included with your small price ticket to get in here. So is there anyone in the audience that wants to introduce themselves? I just know we have some other practitioners here too. So, okay, great. Do you want to come up on stage? And we've
I
got more
have no
people
idea
coming
how to
through.
do that.
I can bring you up. I just need to know, do you want to come up? It sounds like you do.
I don't know what the difference is, so sure.
All right, great.
I
So
don't
you're on
care.
video now. All right, you're on video. That's awesome.
Oh, I see. I
Yeah.
gotcha. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Alrighty.
Yeah. So who are you? How'd you
Hi.
come here? Yeah.
The questions that we ask our entire lives, isn't it? Who are we and how did we get here? My name's Lori. I've been into metaphysics forever. When I was a baby, my mother couldn't get me down for naps because the people would talk to me. And she told me to tell them to go away and never come back.
Oh,
And like maybe 30, 25 years later, I was sitting in a spiritualist church when somebody whispered in my ear, "Is it okay if we talk now?" So, yeah, they told me they never left. They just got quiet.
That's
Um,
awesome.
isn't it? It's great. I'm a psychic medium. I'm an animal communicator. I'm a Reiki master teacher. I have studied all sorts of stuff over the years. I'm very happy to be able to say that Teddy Andrews, I don't know if you guys know him, was one of my primary teachers and a dear friend. Um, and I studied Reiki with William Rand. I'm remembering what's on my bio as I'm talking, in case I don't remember who I am. So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
and how did you choose to come today? What interested you in coming?
It popped up on my feed that another medium I know locally um, follows you. To be honest with you, I'd never heard of you guys. And that was like less than an hour ago. So I went, hey, I'd really like to see how some of these other people do it because I've never worked off the internet. So that's, yeah.
Bless you, whoever that
Yeah,
was.
Bless
cool.
you, whoever
Great.
that was.
Great. All right. Well, thanks, Lori, for coming and for jumping
Yeah.
up and introducing yourself. All right. Does anyone else want to introduce themselves? And you can do it from your chair, or you can come up here and be on video, and then you'll be in the recording. So it's up to you. Okay, great, Guy. Do you want to come up on stage?
Sure, I'd be
All
honored.
right. Yeah,
Welcome
who
to the
are you?
trip.
What's your connection to metaphysics? How did you come? Like, why did you come today? What is there anything
Well,
you
I
want to
was on
explore?
last night for all the went to a couple of breakouts, had a good time, and I saw that there was something on tonight for just general discussion. And my background, my father taught Sarat Shop yoga, which is that ringing sound in your head that we call tinnitus. And that was since I can remember. And we lived in an old house in Eureka, and my brother and I wound up in the front bedroom. And so we had a big sliding door, and all these Humboldt State students would come in because they were high on whatever drugs they were on. They're trying to get off the drugs, and my dad said, "Well, we can work that out maybe." And so we'd get shut up in our room, and we had a bathroom in our side because it was an old farmhouse, and they kind of extended onto the house. So there was three bathrooms, three kitchens, and they made it an apartment building. But anyway, so they'd shut us in our room, and then they'd have their meeting from like 6 to 7, and they'd always sit down and kind of get comfortable, chat about what happened during the week, and then they tell jokes, and I always heard the laughter, but never the joke or the punchline. So ever since then, I've been, I hate missing a joke. It just something in me just says, I hate missing the punchline. Anyway, so then they after about an hour, we were already in bed, but then they wake up and they talk about the discussions. And when I got older, we did things like he had members of the group that were in Chicago and Dallas and Escondido, California, and all around the place. And what we would do is we'd imagine meditating with somebody from Chicago, and then we'd give them a call on the phone and ask them what their experience was. And this was when I was like, 15 or so. So I thought it was so interesting that I would have the same experience as Joy Keeble in Chicago. And I would tell her that this is the three things that I had in my hour of meditation, but I left one out. And she would say, "Oh yeah, I got that too. I got that too." And when I said, "Okay, well, what did you experience?" She mentioned the one thing that I hadn't. So I'd always kind of realized that we're more connected than we imagine. And I actually was, when I was in the Air Force, I was doing a presentation for like 300 people. We were waiting for the stragglers. I said, how many, this is before cell phones. I said, how many people have gone to the phone to call somebody and it's ringing before they get there? And when they pick it up, it was the person they were going to call. And like, 80% of the hands went up in the air. And I said, well, that's interesting, Anyway, I've tried to use that to my advantage and try and get people together to work as a team to do some interesting things. And that's why I'm here to see if I can generate a crew perhaps or add to it.
Great, great. Well, thanks so much. And anyone else want to introduce themselves? It's optional. You can do it from your chair. Anyone else checking in? You don't have to. Okay. If you want to at some point, let us know. All right. Well, we are here. It is today. What should we talk about?
Well, the thing that I've been kind of working on a little bit is looking at the concept of energy compatibility in different aspects. And what I mean by that is, there's people that you resonate with, like in terms of like you meet somebody and you're like, oh, I really like that person, or I really don't like that person, and you can't necessarily explain why that is. And it's, and some people are like, it's a past life thing, and it might be, but a lot of times it's just energy compatibility. Like you're at completely different levels of energy, and you can't, so it's like there's no resonance there. And the other part of that is, because I've been thinking about this, like when you get people together, like they resonate with each other for a particular reason. So, for instance, if you are like a person who has like high vibration, it's really hard to hang out with people of a lower vibration. And this is not like, trying to be like elitist or anything like that, but it's just very uncomfortable. And it's the same thing like if you are of a lower vibration and you hang out with a bunch of people that are higher vibration than you, it is very uncomfortable because you feel overwhelmed. And so for me, I was just thinking, because somebody else had mentioned this to me, like that for me, I needed to start hanging around with people who are at the same level of vibration I am, because they were saying that, your problem is like you spend all your time with your students, like people who are not quite where you are. And so that's lifting them up, but at the same time, it's also dragging you down. And I was like, I never thought of it that way. And so And then when I started thinking about it, I was thinking about like the people that I trained with. Like, we all came in, like we were all low vibration because we were still dealing with all our stuff, trying to get rid of our energy blocks and all that kind of stuff. And as we worked together, we all raised up at the same time. And in doing so, like, there's some days when your vibration is low because you're tired or you're sick or whatever. And then other times when your vibration is really high because you feel good and things are going good, right? That kind of stuff. And what happens is like when you have a group of people that are kind of at the same kind of base level of energy, then like regardless of the fluctuations, everything kind of balances out because this person might be lower today, this person's higher, so that equals out, right? And what happens is as you work together, then the vibration just for the group, as for every individual, goes up as well. Because that's what happened with the group that I was working with. And it's something I never even thought about it until somebody mentioned it. And I went, huh. And so when I think about being compatible with other people, I think that that's something that we need to be aware of, especially if we're teaching, because most of our interactions are with our students, not necessarily with other teachers. And when students don't necessarily interact with other students, their only other person that they normally connect with is their teacher. And so that creates an imbalance in energy for both of them. So I think it's an interesting concept to think about. Like, who do we surround ourselves with? Who do we spend our time with? Who do we share energy with? Who do we do energy projects with? I think it's an important thing to think about. in terms of raising a vibration. Yeah.
So this is one thing I actually think about all the time.
Really?
Totally think about this all the time. Differently a
Okay.
little bit than what you're talking about, but I think about it endlessly. And I can't remember if I introduced myself in the second part or not, but I'm an intuitive eye reader, body psychology coach, and matchmaker. And part of why I think about this a lot is matchmaking, and also because one of my teachers focuses on some of this stuff a lot. So in matchmaking, I look at different people's energy in various ways and whether they're compatible. I look at consciousness because if people are in different stages of consciousness, it's a huge mess. I believe that the person that is more conscious in any relationship is the one that's responsible for holding the relationship. And yes, whenever two people are in different places, consciousness, if we're going to do higher or lower, they sink and they come up, and the person is having to hold this. And so I look at it in dating all the time because if one person is more conscious than the other and they're connecting, the person that's not as conscious is artificially higher when they're connecting, where they're dampened. And so they might think they're more compatible, but over time they eventually end up realizing because this person, they go away from them and they sink back down and then they come back and there's this having to, meet and do this all the time. So it's important in matchmaking that people are watching consciousness when they're not just with them, when one's more conscious. And so, yeah, the thing that you're talking about with students and teachers totally happens all the time. I don't always agree that like a group where there are differences that they all kind of find some mellowy kind of ground. The phrase that we have, a bad apple, a rotten apple spoils the barrel, I think is true. There are workplace teams where if one person is toxic and it's not addressed, it really brings the whole team down a lot. And I think that that can happen too. So while there's
Oh
some,
yeah, for sure.
blending, yeah, so I think that
Yeah.
there's much more capacity for bringing someone down. And if there's intentionality, people can go up. I also think about states and stages. So the stage, if we do consciousness, is like the more integrated place where we are, and then we might have a temporary state where we're higher or a temporary state where we're lower. So like I've been sick, so we could say that I'm lower. Or if we do some activities that are particularly blissful and we're focused, we can get more conscious temporarily. So I do the stage we're at and the state we're temporarily at. Um, oh gosh, I mean, in terms of hiring, just I do this endlessly. So I live in this world all the time. Finally, there's something I do that I'm always learning from the two of them, everyone. And like, so yeah. So anyway, yeah,
No,
cool.
that's great. Yeah, because that's what I was thinking. Like, when I refer to like a base level, that would be like your stage, right? Versus
Hmm.
like a state would be like sometimes that's why I said that we fluctuate. Sometimes we're higher, sometimes we're
Hmm.
lower. So that would be the state you're in, right?
Hmm.
But I think if you have like a group of people that you work with and you're all kind of at the same stage,
Hmm.
and then like the fluctuations would kind of be within the
Hmm.
range, and then you would have that where this one can pull you up and then there wouldn't be so much of a drop. But yeah, like the bad apple, yes,
Totally
absolutely.
missed.
And then there's also the person that's like they're so high that everybody else is like, we don't know what to do with that,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
as I
Oh,
said, it's like if you get people that are kind of at your stage, like in your terminology, then I think that overall creates balance, and then that would actually help everybody. If the intention is to continue to raise vibration, then everybody would move at the same pace.
yeah, yeah, if they want to. I want to say too, like, so obviously we know like energy and frequency, like just watching a teacher, right? The energy of the teacher and the energy the teacher's connected to, like even it's on video, like so impacts us. I was gonna say too that for online dating, because as a matchmaker, I look at people's photos all the time. So I particularly have people pay attention to the photos where people have friends with them. So I have them look at the consciousness of the friends. Who do they choose to hang out with? And then I also have people think about their own profile and who do they have in their photos. And I recommend, particularly for online dating, that they choose friends that are at least about as conscious as them. So the same kind of stage. Because if they have friends that are a bunch less conscious, it's going to come across negatively in their profile. Even other people that don't realize consciously what's going on, they pick up the vibration of that. So yeah, so again, just all these ways I'm thinking about it all the time with people. So it's great to go look at your Facebook account if you have one, and who are your friends and what are the energy of your friends? Do you have people from long ago that are still connected? Have you connected to a lot of new people? Like what's the average consciousness stage? Yeah, of the people in your field, even that you don't interact with all the time, but that are available, right, electronically and might show up on your wall and all that stuff. It totally has an impact. Sorry, so much I could say, I guess.
That's interesting. Yeah, because I never even thought about that, that's what you do. But I was thinking in terms of like, because that's one of the things that people always talk about is like raising your vibration, right? And I've actually heard some people tell others like, well, you of course you can't do that. Your vibration's not high enough. I'm like, what? Like that to me, that's just like people need to be wherever they need to be. But at the same time, if they want you to raise your vibration and you want to do that, then I would say the easiest way to do that is if you find your tribe to do that, because then they can actually help you do that. Um, and I think that, because a lot of this stuff is like we do everything by ourselves. And in general, we don't have to.
No, and that's why there's like a woo-woo cafe in Redmond. And it's like if you're gonna go sit in a cafe, go sit at the woo-woo cafe with other woo-woo people who are generally probably more conscious and more interested in these things than just like the Starbucks that's across the parking lot. It totally makes a difference.
Hmm.
And yeah, and Guy, I don't know if you're just like it's fine if you're responding and you're agreeing with things,
No,
or there's something you want to say. Yeah.
I had a comment. Yeah. One thing I found is in the military, when they grab people from all over the place and they bring them into the basic training in one barracks with 40 people, what they've done well, I was in back in 73, but they brought people from three different regions because if you bring people from all over and 40 people from different areas, their viruses don't match up and you can be sick for the first 3 weeks because of all the illness. Anyway, so you meet all these different people, but when you march together and you're showering and shaving and sleeping in the same room and doing drills and exercising, you develop that cosmic consciousness. And in the army, they would train together and they would deploy together. They would all go up to, infantry. They'd all, put them on a plane, boat, train, or whatever, and they ship them out together because they're a cohesive unit. And you develop that cosmic consciousness and I saw a thing on Marines in the Vietnam jungle that they would, you didn't need to say like they had little symbols for like enemy in sight, go this way without making any noise. And after a while, you didn't need to make any symbols. You just look at somebody, they would know where you want them to go. They know when to get down, or just have that stronger connection. And I remember watching the Hollywood Squares, that tic-tac-toe game, and it was Twins Week. And every square had a twin in it. But the two young ladies in the bottom right-hand corner, every time they asked them a question, they would look at each other for a split second and they would look forward and speak the same sentence every time. And in my mind, once you it's like in entrainment, the closer you are to the person you're involved with, the same similar height, build, look, white, black, whatever, you develop a natural cosmic consciousness. But when you put on a uniform like the Mighty Ducks, or then it kind of helps that along even more. And when you move together like a boat, train, or a plane, then you develop even more of a consciousness. Marching together, it develops even a stronger bond. And the only thing is, the military doesn't know how to disengage once they've served their purpose, they're retired. They still are part of the unit because they don't know how to disengage them from that unity. And I told one guy that had PTSD, I said, well, have you ever woken up like 3 in the morning or something like that? No, you have this need to go and you don't know where. And he goes, oh yeah, that's happened before. I said, well, because he was convalescing from an injury in Afghanistan. I said, well, maybe your old boys are under attack back in Afghanistan. He went, holy moly, yeah, that could be the case because you're still tapped into that group. And some of them they want to re-enlist and go back in because they got to defend their buddies, and they didn't know their buddies before basic training. They were just another person that came from Poughkeepsie, and happened to wind up in the same unit. So,
Yep.
oh, and
Like quantum entanglement or like,
mm-hmm,
and I just want to throw in just as other examples too. I thought about this when you were talking, Kai, and I forgot. I was thinking about how we smell each other's immune systems in terms of reproducing, right? It's like that we can smell who a good partner's immune system is when we're are biologically looking to mate and to reproduce. Yeah, we can smell who's got a good immune system to go with our immune system. I don't
and
know if you all in the audience know that.
pheromones.
Yeah, but just all, yeah. Oh, right. Menstrual cycles and how we time with our menstrual cycles, where it's in our sweat. And like, yeah, there's just so many ways that we as biological creatures are designed to connect.
Mm-hmm. And
Yeah.
sometimes when you meet somebody, you said, "Oh, my wife, she's more psychic than I am," and she met somebody at work, and she says, "Oh no, she's like, I don't want to be caught in an aisleway with this guy. He just felt creepy as heck, and he didn't last long, but she was glad when he left because it just made her, the hair on the back of her neck stood up. Just this guy has been done some things that aren't polite, you know.
Yeah, in terms of
So
matchmaking,
sometimes you get
like
that sense of them.
I can look at the photos and I can tell sometimes when people are narcissists and I don't even understand how am I picking this up, but I'm picking
Hmm.
this up. Yeah, sometimes I get it and sometimes I don't. Just incredible subtle body postures and things. Yeah.
Does anybody else have anything they want to add as far as like the people that you've worked with, the people that you normally train with, the people that you do energy work with, like you're really good friends about that, and just notice how you are with them and what's happened and how you are like what strengthens you when you work with other people. Have you guys noticed any of that stuff? I mean, because I know I do, for sure.
Well, it's better when you clear each other of baggage. Do a Reiki circle. Everybody, I like it when everybody gets on the table and you have 4 or 5 people working on it at the same time. And then when you get done, you jump up and somebody else gets on the table and you work on each other and get, so everybody has a chance to do whatever psychic surgery, whatever you want to call it. And when everybody's done, then you're more of a conduit and the group really, it's much more dynamic when you're carrying all that baggage from all the stuff you might have picked up at the supermarket or at work or your kids' daycare, all that jangly stuff just really slows people down, in my
Yes,
honest
sir.
opinion.
No, yeah. These are great examples. I really appreciate the stuff you're bringing up. Yeah, anyone else in the audience think of other things?
I want to hear from Lori.
Oh yeah, just get yourself unmuted.
Thanks. Well, actually, what I've been thinking of is, we being enlightened people are always trying to make sure that we increase our vibration and do what's going to be best for us to become more connected with others, with the universe, et cetera, et cetera. And from something I had talked to somebody the other day, and I was trying to explain to them balancing chakras on how we always think that we want our chakras wide open. But if we do that, thank you. I got to shake my head. Yep, I agree. You don't. You don't necessarily need them wide open all the time, because especially if you have other ones that are only open somewhat, you have to stay in balance. And there's that um, similarity to what we're talking now about. Yes, we want to ascend to the higher vibrational levels, but on the same token, if at some point we can no longer identify with people on different vibrational levels, we've
Hmm.
missed our target. I don't know if that's coming out very clear. Oh, and I'm glitching again. Sorry about that.
It's almost like radio
Um,
waves, stations, your receiver has to be on the same station as the transmitter. Otherwise, you're listening to FM
right.
instead of AM and
Mm-hmm.
hmm.
Yeah. I mean, I can be this spiritually evolved, high vibrational person with a glowing upper chakra and with energy that makes me radiate. But if I can't keep my base chakra in line, if I can't keep the day to day things I need to do in my life, I'm not going to be able to identify with people I run into that are low vibration. And I'm not going to be able to. Is any of this making sense?
Hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, but the importance of doing that. I have met people that were so incredibly high vibration, and after they started talking about something other than the wonders of the ethereal, they turned into idiots and were jerks because they lost that ability to be on any other level. And
Hmm.
I just think that's really
Yeah, it's like that's true. It's like there are people that are very unbalanced one way or another. And I mean, unfortunately, that's how I mean, people have to deal with stuff in their own way in their own time. And so, yeah, sometimes I've met somebody who's just like, they spend all their time talking about all this like ethereal stuff and how the angels are speaking to them and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, okay, well, that's nice, but you're telling me all this stuff and you can't figure out how to get from point A to point B because you're not functioning in the real world and you're keeping all you're focusing all your energy into like ethereal types things, but you are human and you live in the real world. So you need to be able to fluctuate between the two. And a lot of people aren't good with that because the real world hurts, right? And
Mhm.
they want to spend as little time as possible doing real world stuff because it's easier to be out of your body. It's easier to kind of just let the universe take control of things. I mean, that's the mentality because I've talked to people like this. They're just like, oh no, I'm just gonna let the universe handle everything. I'm
Yeah.
just like, the universe is not going to write the check that you need to pay for your rent. It's just not going to happen. Like this is part of your job is that you have to do the practical stuff. Like the universe is not going to clean your bathroom. You're going to have to do that yourself. And so but they want to have that connection. I'm so high that that they're not willing to acknowledge that there's the other half of the equation what and if you actually do the mundane stuff, that actually gives you the base to stand on so that you can actually go even
Exactly.
higher with your vibration.
Right.
Right.
They're not grounded properly. And that's like praying that you have enough gas in the car to get you to your destination. You know, you need to
Yes.
fill the tank, you know.
Yeah, I was thinking about spiritual bypassing, and we were talking about that too. I just said we
Mhm.
had someone new enter the room, and I wanted to just clarify. We started off talking about compatibility of people's energy, compatibility in various ways, and we've wandered a bit in the direction of consciousness, but we talked about a lot of different ways that people's just I'll say the energy they are or the stage they're at in all kinds of ways, how it impacts other people. And people and everyone's welcome to introduce themselves if you want, just to say who you are and what your connection is in metaphysics. And you're welcome. And by the way, when you all are just making some comments and things like that too, if you want, you can come up on stage. You'll be in the recording visually. So it's up to you if you want to be on stage or not when you're talking about things. Just want to make sure you know that's all available. And then anyone that's making comments in the chat too, you're welcome to unmute and speak up. And if you don't want to be in the recording, just let us know and we can, say something about your comments too. Because the one that was in here
I think
recently.
this was,
Go ahead.
sorry, yeah, I think this was one of the biggest shockers I ever had when I worked my first metaphysical show, is just how sometimes untouched with reality spiritual workers can be. I met a lovely, lovely girl who is a reader, and when she tried to pay for something with a credit card, she was asked her zip code, and she didn't know her zip code. And uh, Sweetie, I understand that you're in this environment where everything is so woo-woo, you can't even help it. I mean, you might want to know your zip code if you're trying to pay with a card. You know what I mean? That's kind of that was my biggest shock. I'm like, do you eat? You know?
Did she have a
It's
cell phone? Because hopefully she put her own information in her cell phone so that she could refer to that to like, what's your address? I don't know. I never write to myself. But if you have a cell phone, put your own information there so you can send it to somebody.
so kindergartners are required to know their own home address.
Oh yeah.
Okay? I'm just saying. Um, so it's uh, as much as I loved it, I was like, it's a little too high up in the air for me. Let's get down, let's eat, let's use the bathroom, and let's know our zip codes.
Well, I think in terms of how much we're in our body and how much we're not in our body, right? That's something that just varies tremendously for people. And there's probably a range that's good and healthy of how much to be in, like at least so much. But some of us, like I sometimes are saying, like I just get so busy doing all these things, like I'm not enough open. So there's like a range of all this that I think is good. And to be able to be flexible to some extent, to be able to shift and change. But being too grounded in our body in some ways is probably not a good thing too. Like it's just
Yeah. I mean, I think if we're gonna have a metaphysical practice in some form or fashion, like we have to be able to fluctuate between the everyday base human stuff and being able to reach out for, higher spiritual learning and knowledge and all that good stuff too. Like we, I mean, I look at us as being kind of in the middle between heaven and earth, so to speak. And so if we are too much in one way or the other, like that's to our detriment and to the detriment of people around us. Like we need to be, I mean, like I've had a lot of people who are saying, "Oh, I really want to focus on my spiritual practice and blah 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 blah." And I'm like, "Well, that's great, but don't forget to take your meds. Like don't forget to go to the doctor. Don't forget to go shopping. Don't forget to walk your dog.
Mm-hmm.
All this kind of stuff because like that is your real life and you need to focus on those things to make sure that it's like I always tell people you have to have a base to stand on. If you have no base to stand on, like this spiritual cloud that you're trying to create will fall because you have no base. Like you are human. If you were an angel, you could do whatever you wanted. But you have a physical body and there are things that you must do as you live in the society, whatever that society is, whatever culture that is. You have expectations to fulfill. Once you fulfill those things, then you can build other things on top of that, whatever you choose. But the base stuff has to be there.
Mm-hmm. Hmm. Well, I like to tell people that, you've had 100 million cell or 100 trillion cells in your body, but your bacteria, viruses, and fungus outnumber you 10 to 1. So if you're not eating what they need to eat, then they'll make your life miserable. You won't be as healthy as you could be. And once you get them squared away, then you're more intuitive because, your bacteria are psychic. And you get that gut feeling from all the bacteria in your stomach that keep you alive. So one thing that makes me better is that when I treat myself, not as much sugar as I would like, and more fruits and vegetables, and minimizing any junk food because I still like to snack. But if I have a very clean diet, then I'm much more psychic than I would be if I was muddled up with Twinkies and that all the stuff you get at Costco, perhaps.
We are spirit having a human experience,
Mm-hmm.
and we are a fourfold being. We are physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. Our spiritual body is our connection between this reality and the higher realms. So there has to be an understanding of how you treat those first three bodies as well as the spiritual body. All four are important. They all have the same value and they all have the same value. You can't ride a three-legged horse. So I think a lot of what I've heard everybody talking about is people that think, oh, I'm spiritual, so I can ignore the physical reality, the 3D reality, and this vessel that I'm in because I'm spiritual. That's not the case at all. The case is we incarnated here to experience what it means to be an individuated piece of the divine experiencing this plane. And this is the little encounter suit that we have. And I think there's a lot of imbalance in our society about what is given attention to and what is considered more important. And I think in this society, it tends to be the mental is considered to be the most important. The physical is kind of something you got to keep an eye on or take care of, and that really doesn't happen a lot. And then the emotional, I think, is the one that really gets crushed because we don't get a lot of experience and lessons as we're growing about how to deal with having emotions and how to regulate and be with our emotions. We get told that everything that's important is external to us, and that tends to be more the mental. We're taught that you don't go inside to find information. You find the authority figure here, you find that person here, and then we get told you got to fit in this little box to be successful. And then you got to compete with everybody else to be the best little thing that's in this box. And it's totally a 180 from that. That's not, at least to me, that's not the way it is at all. So part of this whole process is surviving to get to an age where you begin to start asking all these questions and you begin to start your own internal journey. And then you start there's tools and things you can do to begin to balance those four bodies. And when everything's in alignment and you're grounded, you're staying in present time, you're staying in your body, you're acknowledging your emotions, um, and you're realizing that the mental thinks it's running the show, but it's not. It's like the shovel thinking it's the gardener. Then we can step back from some of those experiences and realize that those aren't who we are. Those are experiences, but we're greater than that. We're greater than the sum of all our parts. And everybody comes at this differently. We get people that spiritual bypass. They say, "Oh, I don't need to have an ego. Egos are bad, so I don't need to have an ego or emotion or anything like that." And then they don't do their internal work. You get people that stay in the mental and they're not comfortable dealing with talking about anything else. Um, so to me, your hardware, I mean, your software is only as good as your hardware. So the more I'm authentic with who I am and follow my practice and stay with myself, then all the stuff that comes through, the uploads and stuff or downloads, whichever way you want to look at it, it has a place to land and it has a place that I can carry it and balance it. If I'm not doing these other things, especially like what Kai was saying about having a base, a foundation to stand on, then nothing's going to stick. It's all going to go sideways. You don't build a house starting with the roof. You build it with a foundation, and the foundation carries the load of everything that's coming down. So thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
Actually, in
Well,
Japan, they start with a roof and then they elevate the roof and they build under it. So it keeps going up. Because then they
well,
don't need to lift. They just crank it all up and then put blocks down and they keep moving their. Anyway, it was,
But
I
there's
thought,
something holding up that roof
a different idea of construction.
yes, that's fun. I think it,
When I meet some empathetic people that are really messed up because they're so, people will walk up to them and start telling them their life story and they're just a sponge for other people's karmic junk. And I tell them, well, once you get clear of this stuff, and I can help you to do that, imagine as you're doing dishes or watching TV, imagine building this impenetrable brick wall around you, maybe a glass wall, something that you can see through. But imagine building this wall brick by brick as you're doing your dishes, stuff like that. And when you're on the street and somebody comes up and you're not expecting them and they look like they're pretty caustic, just say wall and just see it in front of you as being a big wall. And I was visiting. I was selling windows, and I went to this house, and you were supposed to talk to the husband and wife. And I was talking. The husband wasn't home yet, and the wife said we started talking about this kind of stuff, and she goes, "Well, I'm not supposed to tell you this, but my husband is really psychic." I said, "Oh, that's interesting." He goes, "Yeah, but he doesn't want me to tell anybody about it. But you're cool. I mean, I like you've got the same. You know what I'm talking about." And I said, "All right, but don't let on that you know." I said, "All right." So the husband came home and we were chatting, introduced myself, and everything was happy and glad. And then he asked me all of a sudden, he goes, "So do you believe in kind of any psychic stuff?" I said, "Oh yeah, my dad taught meditation, so I'm." And then he goes, "Oh, okay." And then he said, and then he's, oh, and then he starts laughing. I said, "What?" And he said, "When I walked in, it's like I saw this wall in front of you, and as soon as I asked that, it's like you dropped that wall. As soon as I said, do you believe in psychic stuff?" And you said, it's like that wall came right down. I said, "Oh, because I was trying to keep you from thinking about what, because your wife said you're not supposed." Anyway, it was so funny because he said, "I saw this wall just drop." And I went, "Oh, I must be working then."
part of the problem is a lot of the dominant religions of the world are teaching that the whole point is to transcend the body and reunite with the divine. So people take that to the extreme and think, oh, none of this stuff's important. Let me just focus all my energy here. And then some of these people, a lot of these people are so open to begin with, and there is no training like there might have been in more tribal cultures. They're not being shipped off to the resident shaman for training or the druid circles or the what have you. And so there's no balance. But the problem is if you stay that open and stay in those realms too much, and I've seen it happen, then you trip over into the realm of serious mental illness, psychosis, etc., to the point of, being locked away. And yes, I've seen it happen to people. Um, it's complicated. And then some of it is just plain spiritual bypassing. I don't really want to do the work, so I'm going to go over here and fool myself into thinking I'm doing the important work when I'm not.
Yeah, no, that's true. That if you do stay in like a higher vibration too much for too long, that yeah, it can produce a chemical reaction in your physical body and yeah, throw you into the realm of potential mental illness. That's true because I actually have seen that as well, which is why when I talk to some people about, you know, them developing their gifts and things like that, I'm like, you know, before you forge into that territory, make sure you take your meds because it will, if you already have a chemical imbalance and then you start doing this work, it can imbalance you even further. And yeah, then it can throw someone into a potential psychotic episode, psychic break, that type of stuff. Um, it doesn't happen very often, thank goodness, but yeah, it can. The same thing can happen if you are, or a similar thing that can happen is if you're working with somebody and you know they're trying to release something and like you like for instance I break open an energy block and this person is like overwhelmed with emotion and they can't control it because there's just so much that's happening at that one time. What I will do at that point is I will send energy to the heart chakra and to the sacral to help balance out the energy or help pull that excess energy out through those chakras because there's like they're like the primary emotional centers. So then that way that person does not go into a state of catharsis because that can actually be damaging not just mentally but emotionally and physically to a certain degree. So when we look at helping someone go through their energy trauma type stuff, that's what I will do. So I help to alleviate that load so that they don't fall into full catharsis. Because I know some people are like, that's really good for the body. I'm like, no, actually, it isn't. That's too much trauma in a short amount of time. Um, and so anything extreme on our bodies is not good. So yeah, it's just like the whole thing about being too high can have a detriment, being too low is actually a detriment as well. I know some people who are super, super grounded, and that's great. But if you, with other people, like there's a certain frequency of energy that's too low for them. And what happens is they actually get sick because it's too low for them. Or it causes physical pain in their bodies because it's just too low for them. And so an effective energy healer is able to kind of detect the person's range that they're working on and be able to work within that range,
I'm kind
I
of
think.
teasing, but did I have too little on my schedule? I really had the days with the least on my schedule that I almost ever have right before I got sick. So to some
Yeah.
extent, is it literally like the lack of stuff on my schedule? My energy might have, like I might have lowered it to a way that I was more susceptible.
No, I don't think that your energy was already, because when you get really, really busy, your energy automatically drops. And then your body probably just was like, okay, we're done. We're going down. And it's like mentally, you kind of prepare yourself for this kind of stuff. I mean, because it's almost like people do this, like when they go on vacation, like people are like, okay, I'm going on vacation. I'm so excited. And then they get sick on vacation. Happens every time.
Yeah,
Right.
it's common.
And it's
Yeah.
because like mentally you're like, okay, I'm going to have a break. So then your body's like, okay, good. I can have a break too. And then you get sick. And so that's why I tell people, like, you know, if, you know, you tell your body, like, we're not going to get sick. We're going to take a break. We're going to have a good time. You know, if there's something that I need to deal with, then kind of let me know now so that I can get some, you know, get my antibiotics or whatever I need to, or, you know, get my vitamin C or
Vitamins,
whatever it
yeah.
is so that I can kind of like, we're not going to drop that low
I've
kind of thing.
so you
It's
removed
kind of like a,
go ahead,
I'm
Angela.
sorry. It's kind of like if you've ever been around horses, it's like taking a horse off the racetrack, not cooling them out, throwing them in a stall and leaving. They then tie up and get very sick and can even die from that. It's essentially the same similar type of thing. And I experience this. So I've learned never, when I'm really run down, never, ever, ever come to a complete stop. That's not the time to curl up on the sofa for 3 days. you got to step yourself down gradually. It's kind of like walking yourself cool at the end of a race. I don't know how better else to put it,
Yeah,
but
fascinating analogy.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, so I'm just thinking, Kai, you remove negative energy from people, negative entities from people all the time.
Mhm.
So in terms of compatibility, so there are different kinds of messy entities. So I'm wondering about those kinds of people and what they bring with them and how they get along with each other. And what is it like for people when like they have entities and you remove them and how other people perceive them and so what they pick up about their energy and how that shifts. So I'm just thinking about all those kinds of things.
Oh yeah, that gets fun then because when people have entities, um, what they will do is like entities get along fantastically with one another, regardless of whoever they're attached to. So especially like if it's in a family, like one person will have an entity that feeds on their anxiety. Another one in the family will feed on somebody else's anger. And so what will happen is the one that's angry all the time, like the entity will influence the angry person to yell at the anxious person so that the two of them will interact. Um, and so
Puppets.
yeah, and even one person who has like anxiety issues or anger issues or whatever, like the entities feed on different types of emotions for like that one person. So for instance, if like the person has a contentious relationship with a sibling or something, right? The the um the anxious one would be like, oh my gosh, that person's always telling you stuff and blah 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 blah. And that makes them angry, which then feeds this other thing and then causes an interaction with the person. I mean, there's just they
Kind of
coordinate
like
this
the
whole
entities playing
dance.
ping pong. They're kind of playing ping pong with the people.
They do. They really do. Because I've literally watched this happen. Like this entity is like telling this person this thing, and then the person goes over here, and this person with the entity, this person, they're saying this thing, and then the two of them interact, and I'm literally just watching this. So yeah, like they can do all kinds of stuff. So and then if I remove an entity from something, then that kind of like breaks the cycle, and the person who doesn't have the entity can now go, wait, what's happening here? Like, why was I always doing that? And then that's when they realized how they were being influenced. And then they can then possibly identify the influence on the other person.
So sometimes we think it's the way that we resonate or don't resonate, and it's really the entities that are we're picking up or
Sometimes,
we're
yeah.
influenced by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's that whole birds of a feather flock together thing, right? So if you've got entities that are all like, they want to encourage, people to behave badly, like, a whole, like you go into a bar and like there's all these entities in there that like encouraging people to drink and behave badly. That's what they're there to do. um and just other things like you have um things that encourage people to be mean about things or to just be rude and hurt other people. I mean, they come in all flavors and colors just like people do. And yeah, so you could definitely have like different types of entities influencing people in different ways to get different reactions. I mean, you put one person with an entity in a room, and depending on how strong it is, like it can cause all kinds of chaos.
The bad apple
Just
myth.
one.
Yeah. The apple spoiling the barrel thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. One entity. Yeah.
Yeah, the if I can interject, the energy follows thought. And so if you're thinking of something and you're even more um excited about it, then that just generates more energy. So I agree. Some spirits in homes or whatever, they just sit there and rabble rouse and pit one person against the other because when they're both emoting, they're both just sitting back like, with hands to the fire, getting all warm. They go, "Oh, this is a nice little charge here." They just and they know the kind of energy that they like, and so they'll generate the conflict to create that kind of energy amongst the two people or the four people, whatever, and they just sit back and bask in it, and it's the juice that keeps them going. And sometimes that can become like, when you worship an idol, the idol takes on that energy, and pretty soon the idol's crying tears or doing some weird stuff because there's thousands of people coming to see that idol. and worshiping it or seeing, watching it cry and going, and people, even science is going, how does that happen? They don't understand the concept behind it, but it's just that the energy just manifests when you've got that many people, thinking about that idol or that, you know, whatever it might be. That's my comment, I think.
Does anybody have any questions today about anything in particular while we're rambling on?
Right, or any particular topic, yeah, that you wanted us to explore?
Yeah. If you don't want to say it out loud, you can just pop it in the chat.
Well, I was talking to Lorelei about, and I know a lot of Reiki people that I know, and I started with Reiki, but now I do quantum touch more and some shamanic stuff or whatever you call it. And a lot of Reiki people, it's like they think that you can never use it for somebody that you don't get permission from. And I came up with a thing last night talking to three people that were in the session. I said, in my mind, if somebody's really becoming an issue for everybody, then why doesn't everybody just say, well, let's clean them up, whether or not they give permission, because they're affecting everybody else. They're bringing the energy down. And when you've got dictators that are annihilating the people in the neighboring countries because they think they can, because they've got the state secret service around them, or the police force, whatever you want to call it, any dictator, they just start taking things into their own hands and making everybody else's life miserable, or making their life go away. So to me, like, Tibet was all about, hey, we're up here in the mountains, nobody's going to mess with us, and we're just going to be peaceable. And then China just walked in and took over. So to me, why doesn't we're using Reiki distant healing energy? Why don't we all get together as Reiki masters or specialists or whatever and use distant healing to work on a dictator and see what happens?
You no.
Oh,
Why
well,
not?
yes,
No.
so I want to bring
Let
in the context too of Matt. So Matt does healing on people, and he does healing on people where he doesn't explicitly have permission in the way that we often talk about it. And
Mhm.
so there's a way that he maybe has a higher permission. So yeah, this whole idea of permission and how we can impact people without permission, and what kind of filters we can make so we're not impacted by things, and where we really can't. So anyway, that's a whole conversation that's very interesting.
Yeah, this is really weird because I was actually just writing about this yesterday.
There you
So
go.
the way I look at it is this. Like, the general premise is that we do not work on people without their permission, ever.
Like a general thing for practitioners that we don't. A lot of people believe that. A lot of
Right. That
practitioners
is
follow that.
that is a general rule. However,
Yeah, there's big
um,
however's.
there are times when I do make exceptions, and I am very conscious about my exceptions and how they work. Okay, so for instance, if there's like an accident on the, like, if I pass an accident on the freeway and I can see it's really bad, like I can like, you get near an accident and you feel like there is blood there, right? What I will do is I will send energy not just to the participant, whoever's in the accident, but to the general, whoever's involved with that event, with the intention that they can accept it if they want. If they don't want the energy, then it goes to the earth. So I'm not sending to anybody specific. I'm just sending it to the situation. And if anybody wants that energy, they're welcome to it. If they don't want it, then whatever's left over goes to the earth. Okay, that's one of the exceptions I will make.
I do
The
something
other,
very similar. Yeah.
yeah, the other exception that I will make is if a person is not able to speak. So, for instance, if someone's in the hospital and they're unconscious, or they have something where they cannot talk because they've got apparatus in their face or whatever, and they're not able to give verbal consent to something, what I will do then is I will actually go speak to that person's higher self and ask permission from them in that respect. And they have told me on occasion, no, I do not want your help. And I respect that. Those are the only two exceptions I make. I might send energy to a situation, not to a person. So, for instance, if you're talking about a foreign country, like, for instance, let's just pick Afghanistan, right? I'm not real thrilled with how the suppression of women is happening over there. I'm not going to send energy to the leaders of the Taliban. I'm going to send energy to just the general energy of Afghanistan so that everyone, regardless of sex, regardless of whatever's happening, that people get what they need from the energy. And then with the intention that if they are willing to accept it, then great. If they don't want it, it goes to the earth. That's what I do. I mean, like I might send energy, for instance, to like a body of water, like the Pacific Ocean or something like that. Again, anytime I send energy without express permission to something, I will say you have the option to accept or reject as you please. Because when you send energy and with the intention that the person is automatically supposed to accept it for whatever reason, even if you have the best of intentions, that is going against that person's free will. And as far as I'm concerned, that's not okay.
Right.
So if you
The
have a
other side of
person,
that, the other side of that is you don't know what role that person is meant to be playing in the bigger
Yes.
picture, much bigger picture.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
You
And
do
that,
not know what lessons, okay, well, we can use this country as an example. There are a lot of lessons, and a lot of people are being forced to self-reflect in a way that if he was not president and this crap was not going on, would not occur. You can fix him, and maybe you can get a situation, but you may find 10, 20, 30 years down the road that you made the situation worse and didn't realize it. Because sooner or later, those issues have to be addressed. That reflection has to happen. That growth needs to happen. And if he doesn't do it, they may, powers that be, or, hive mind, whatever, however you want to call it, may put somebody worse in place to force it to happen. You cannot foresee or understand the roles that are being played.
Yeah,
So
no,
addressing that,
that's
I
true.
agree with her, addressing the general angst, great.
so
Changing somebody's personality or fixing what we deem as fixing,
you can't.
But we
not
don't want to.
appropriate. It would seriously make things a whole lot worse with the
But we don't
best
want to.
intentions.
You
We don't
could,
want to inhibit ourselves to think we shouldn't do anything because it could have a negative
no, that's
consequence, and
not
we
it
don't.
at all.
Yeah.
It's not it at all. But you do it in a neutral fashion so that you are allowing divine order to continue to unfold. Because as Angel just pointed out, we don't know where this person is in the whole big picture of everything. So similar to Kai, I will do the same thing. If I drive by an auto accident or anything like that, I say I place this accident into the light. Uh, that all have access to this light to use as they see fit in accord with divine order, honoring the evolutionary path of all concerned for the highest good. Boom. It lets it be there. It's similar to what Kai was saying. It's supporting whatever turns out that it unfolds for the highest good and honors everybody's evolutionary path that's involved in that situation. Um, man, I mean, I'm not God. I'm a little piece, but this is my mental self is a limited vehicle on this plane. It's conditioned to function in this 3D realm. There's no way that I can see this massive divine plan that's been unfolding for millions of
Millennia. Yeah.
yeah, millennia. So all I can do for my place is to support the continuum by doing what I just said and what Kai's pointed out and what Angela's pointed out. It's really hard sometimes to watch somebody be a slow motion train wreck and watch them make choices that extremely painful for everybody else around them because they see what's going on, but they can't stop this person from choosing what they're choosing. And again, we have free will. And who knows where they are at that moment in their evolutionary path. For whatever purpose, that's what's unfolding for them. People will look at me and say, God, I wouldn't do what you're doing, or why did you choose to do that? And it's like, it's my path, it's my choice. As long as I do my best not to cause harm as I move through my life, then yeah. But
So you're
yeah,
saying then that, like for instance, the people of Tibet, They let the Chinese exercise their free will. The Chinese came in and took over their entire country, and the Dalai Lama's been in exile for what's it been, 80 years now? Well, he's not that old, but I mean,
Well, how
70,
far
70
back do you
years.
want to go? I mean, look at what happened to the United States when the Europeans came here. They decimated this country.
Yeah.
They decimated the native population. They brought slavery here.
Mm-hmm.
People that were against their free will brought them here and did horrible things to them. So it's a continuing unfoldment of what the divine put into motion. The divine decided it wished to know itself better, and the best way to do it is to send little pieces of itself here to have experience.
More than that, be careful not to take the individual person as the problem. He is not
Yeah.
the problem. They are not the problem. They are
So,
the symptom of a problem.
right. So,
Civil War and slavery. Yeah, we won the Civil War. We beat slavery. We broke that part of the system,
no, we
but
didn't.
we didn't
No, no, he
change
didn't. Yeah.
anything,
He
No,
just
right?
changed
All we
flavors.
did is drive it underground. We didn't fix anything. Therefore, it is now coming around again.
and
So
that's why
if
I
we keep
think
making
so.
the same mistakes, we're going to keep getting the worst results,
Well,
right?
but don't you think that that's why so many of the practitioners volunteered to be here this lifetime? So many of
Yeah.
us are
Well,
so much more aware now what's happening. We've hit the critical mass point for us as a spiritual evolutionary jump point. We've hit that place. Now we're in the sausage phase where we aren't the caterpillar, we ain't the butterfly, we're in the soup phase.
Hmm.
And I think that's another reason why I think Angela was pointing it out earlier, why this election was so crappy. Everybody has to get their face rubbed in it to really experience it. And some people are going to catch a clue and some already are. Some won't because they're not awake enough. They're not in touch with their divine self. But I believe there's an active push on this planet, and that's why I think we're so polarized, is we're pushing towards the higher expression of who we all can be. Instead of being in competition with each other, we celebrate our diversity and then we celebrate the collaboration that each person brings something to the table, and we can create a totally different world than the way it exists today. And I
So
think,
how do you say that
well,
what's happening now is leading us to that, unless that there's some way that we come together in ways we haven't yet come together
so I
Because
in
think,
opposition to
now,
what's happening?
okay,
right now, the
so
conversation is being forced. People are forced to think,
I
being
think
forced to
this,
process, reconsider. Until that happens, then you have the arguments and the pushback and the disagreements that
well,
eventually, hopefully, lead to a consensus. But we're
so
not there yet.
no, and this to me, this realm got corrupted. We have free will, but this realm got corrupted, in my opinion. And negative energy forms exist in this plane, and they get fed by fear and greed and rage and trespass that happens. And I think again why there's this huge polarity is because we're starting to change that. We're starting to change that. And I think that's been a general thing that's been coming on for some time now. And that's why I feel like they're rats in a corner. They're getting pushed away, and we're going to cut off um, what they used to feed on.
yeah. And I think some of us are here also to kind of, to a certain degree, soften the blow because this is so, so difficult for us
Mhm.
that I think, I mean, I've noticed a lot of people who have, who have come on the scene and they are like very nice, very kind, very open people. And I think that they kind of are here, their energy is to kind of help make the transition go a little smoother so it's not so rough, despite the fact that it is very challenging for us.
Mhm.
I mean, I've met several people who are just like, their energy is just so comforting that I'm just like, oh, okay. They almost serve as like a little break for us in some way.
Yeah.
And I appreciate that because yeah, this is a very difficult time for us just in general, like not just in our country, but on our planet.
Mhm.
I mean, there's lots of little things that are happening all over the world that most of us are not even aware of is happening. So but again, that's the grand plan, right? All this stuff happens. We may not be aware of it, but what we need to do, at least I look at it as my personal responsibility, is to maintain the highest vibration that I can at all
Yep.
times.
Yep.
And that I help other people to maintain their vibration as high as they can in whatever way I can. So if that means for me, like removing entities from them, helping their ancestors to cross over, helping them release energy blocks, that kind of stuff. That's my part. That's where I sit. I also did a project a few weeks ago where I dealt with some dark nexuses that were in our country that I got rid of. I was also told to do that. I also removed some energy that was around our planet a few months ago. And
So who
because
gave you
those are
permission?
things that actually, those are things that I was told to do by my guides.
Yeah.
So that stuff like that, I don't need permission for, because that's what they tell me to do. That's what I did.
No.
I just
Yes.
before we get too
So,
far somewhere else, I
Lori.
just know Lori's got her hand up too, so I just want to.
yeah, I just want to finish making this one point. It's like when it comes to an individual person, like that is something that you need free will on. Anything that's public, it's like stuff that corrupts the entire planet. It's like, as far as I'm concerned, that's fair game, because that affects everyone. It's not an individual. So I don't need permission for that. If my guides tell me that that's something that I need to work on, something that I need to do, then that's what I do. I mean, other people can have any opinion about that they like, but that's how I work.
Hmm.
And I
You
do
know.
want to keep talking about the group and the individual and and choices of what we impact and all that stuff. But I wanted Lori to get her voice in.
Yeah, let's get Lori's question on
Well,
tape.
one of the things I've realized over life is everyone thinks they're doing the right thing. Other countries, people I don't agree with. I mean, if we take a look at this group here today, I would think there's a whole lot of things we would all agree on what's not healthy, what's not right with our country, what shouldn't be going on, and that's great. But I've heard military negotiators talk, people that had to interrogate prisoners from other countries. And they said the one thing they all found was they all believed they were doing the right thing for the right reasons. Every single one of them. So if I'm going to say I'm going to correct a situation and send healing to it, who the hell am I? I mean, seriously, I do not know the ramifications. When I say prayers, I will say prayers for now, in the future, and in the past, because everything we do has a reflection one way or the other. One of the most, quite arguably, heinous people that ever lived on this planet was several hundred years ago, and that was Genghis Khan. And I don't even think there was a million people or a billion people here yet. I mean, think about how long ago that was. He was responsible for killing over 1 million people back then. He killed so many people that we know there were so many farmers and villagers killed that a lot of farmland went wild and forests retook. We know that is when we look at carbon dating. After he was around, our carbon emissions got a whole lot better. You can see where he was. Scientifically, you can see where this horrible, horrible, vicious, incredibly violent person was, who had this terrible impact on humanity. And if it wasn't for that person, our carbon emissions would be much higher than they are now. Much higher. And if they were much higher than they are now, we wouldn't be having this conversation. So I can't decide who's right. Even when I'm doing healing work, I leave it up to the beings much higher than I, how it takes effect. Um, while I ask people before I send healing to them, yeah. And if it's not, I ask it to go on somewhere else that can be useful. But I don't want other people screwing with my energy. If they are going to have a preconceived idea on what's wrong with me,
Correct.
you know, just like I don't want to mess with somebody else if I don't know what's in their best interest. Who the hell? Never in a million years did I think I would get to the point I thought Genghis Khan had a purpose. I mean, Adolf Hitler had a purpose.
Yeah, that's that grand plan thing. Like we just don't know. Yeah, we just don't know.
White people went to South America 400 years ago, and we took down all sorts of diseases, all sorts. And there was this gargantuan number of humans that were killed. Just like we brought them Christianity and killed them all at the same time. There's a reason.
I think that's like a very slippery slope to go down, though, because then you can start justifying all sorts of
I'm
things.
not justifying
them
it.
and self-doubt if you're not careful. So
we could
I am not
justify
justifying
doing a lot.
any of it. And if it turned me putting my life down to stop somebody like that, in a heartbeat, I wouldn't hesitate.
But that's why I'm like, yeah, so there are lots of actions that we do take that in whatever way past experience we've decided that's okay. But then there are other things maybe we haven't done and we think it's not okay because it might have a big impact. We don't know. But maybe it's just because we haven't done it, we don't have experiences. Like your question, Lori, I think where you just said, or your comment, that if you could impact some of these people that you would want to do it. I think that's part of what Guy's was wondering about and his ideas. And then when Kai, you're saying maybe it's not okay. And like some of us are saying it's not okay because
Yeah,
of
like
the impact it can
I
make
mean,
that we don't know.
my general principle is like if it's an individual, like I wouldn't. Like honestly, if it's so I remember at some point somebody said something about like, you know, if you're part of a group and there's one person that's kind of like dragging everybody else down, like what I do in situations like that, I actually learned from a friend of mine. It's like you bless them on their journey. Basically, what that means is, you know, here's your hat, bye-bye. Find the thing that makes you happy because obviously you're not happy here or you would be. So I bless you on your journey. I give you all the strength and love and whatever it is that you need so that you can find whatever you're looking for because obviously it's not here. But I do so in a positive way so that that person is, you know, energized and feels good and actually finds where they need to be, wherever that happens to be.
And I don't know enough, but I think that an idea is that rather than taking a person down, it's actually to lift them up.
Yeah. Yeah. Just like here, you know, here's some energy. I'll give you all the love in the world. Go find your tribe, whatever, wherever that happens to be.
And I think the
because
idea is
obviously
that
it's not here.
if there's some bigger lesson and some bigger pattern and some mess that they're part of, if they go away, someone else might take their place and it's continuing to go. It could get delayed, right? It could change things but yeah, it would be different, but it might not end the pattern that maybe the original intention is to end.
It's basically bless you on your journey and send welcome to the new person, whoever that is. And then just leave it at that. And so if I was doing like a world leader or something like that, it'd be the same premise. Like I bless you on your journey, whatever that journey happens to be, whatever it happens to entail. I'm not trying to control that at all. I just want to bless you in whatever your role is. Because yeah, some people, like Angela said, some people are here to be agitators. They're here to reflect the bad stuff that we've been hiding. And so if that is their role, then I bless you on that journey because it's not going to be it's not going to be an easy one.
And Lori, did you get to say everything you want? Just Lori, I didn't want to cut you off.
My point is we're not the ones who get to understand. And I think that's really important. I spend way too much of my time fighting for causes that I find justified, um, working in political campaigns. I'm an environmentalist. I spend a lot of times doing this because those are the things that I believe in. I need to let sources higher than me get the final decision.
Hmm.
That doesn't mean I don't do anything to heal people I know that are sick or my society.
Mhm.
Yeah, I work my butt off on that stuff.
Yeah, it's funny because I haven't
But
done
in
any of
the
that stuff.
end, I'm not the one who makes the decision.
And just in there, Shannon, you were saying something too. Did you get a chance to say what you wanted to say?
Oh, one thing that I've been thinking about lately, is like rather than something like being, meant to be or serving a particular purpose or like, having been here to serve a purpose, kind of more like what are the people who are responding to the thing doing, if that makes sense, where it's like, for myself, like I have all these like synchronicities and stuff that happen in my life. And I'm like, oh, are they actually like is it like a thing that came to me like, like a tool versus like, oh, I have this particular interpretation of it and this particular orientation towards that type of thing. And like, yeah, like and I'm looking for answers to a particular thing in a particular time. And I just, like there was benefit in that, so it's like to me saying that like Hitler served a purpose in the world. I mean, sure, like he created a lot of ripple effects and lots of things happened because he was alive and did what he did. But it's not like, oh, I don't know if I believe anymore that it's like, oh, he came here because these things needed to happen and these people needed to learn this lesson or whatever, like it's more like to me, like I'm kind of wondering if it's like, oh, like, people respond to something in a certain way, and that's kind of like more reflecting on the people who are responding to something as opposed to like the thing that's happening. I don't think it's like all or nothing. Like I don't, like I'm not saying that like there's never anything like that going on, but I don't know if that makes sense. But it's kind of like more like a reflection of the responders as opposed to the people like instigating the action. Like,
I'm
or
not
like,
suggesting that we needed Hitler. I'm just suggesting at some point something went amiss and had to be taken care of. I mean, don't ask me to explain that. That's beyond my pay grade.
Yeah, I think some things just happen on a grander scale that we don't understand. I mean, I think,
Mhm.
you know, like Hitler and any other dictator, it's like they have done things that most people would consider to be reprehensible, but at the same time, for those of us who managed to get the information from it, like we've learned things, that it's that whole thing about people who don't learn history are doomed to repeat it.
Mhm.
And so for us, in the aftermath of those sort of things, like there's certain things that we've learned, some things that we don't take for granted, some things that we pay attention to now that we didn't prior to that. And so I think if nothing else, like some people depend, and that's true for whatever it is, whether it be a dictator or a cult leader or whatever it is. Like once we know something, then it's like, oh, okay, that's more information that we had before. And I think that that enriches us. Whether they came to do that or not, I don't know. I mean, that could have been part of the grand plan, but we would never know that. The thing is just what did we learn from it? And make sure that whatever mistakes we made, that we don't repeat it.
Yeah. And also the morality of it, I think, about if something like that runs unchecked and everybody goes, oh, I guess we just need to have this experience and just let them do whatever they're going to do. I think Shannon's point about it reflecting back about what is the response of the rest of the people around, the ones that say, no further, you're harming people, you are creating massive destruction, you are, um, you, yeah. So I think the response that we see is the reflection of trying to restore people's ability to exercise their free will in a way where you're not harming another when you follow your own path.
was like Russia and Ukraine. I think Ukraine has had a bigger impact on the world than Russia did by that action.
I'm
Mhm.
sorry, could you say that again?
Russia and Ukraine. I think that Ukraine's response had a bigger impact on the world than Russia's initial
Yes, I
action
agree.
had. Yeah,
Yeah,
like an example
yeah,
of the response mattering. And I know Guy wants to share
yeah.
something else. Guy, go ahead.
Yeah, I like the kind of like the as above, so below, as within, so without, and the fact that nature likes to have a model and then repeat itself in different genres. And when I went into the Air Force and I went into the career field of security police, and it was split with security police and law enforcement. Security police guarded the resource, like the aircraft, the nukes, the planes, the bombs, all that stuff, and then law enforcement was your normal police force. So we were trained in both, but then we split out and did our regular jobs, and we could go back and forth. So when something happened on base and they were trying to take our resources, our weapons, our planes, then we responded in kind, and we're ready to shoot people if need be. Law enforcement, if somebody was trying to steal the money from the base fund or from the commissary, the BX, the NCO club, then they come with guns and they try and keep them from taking our stuff. So I'm kind of because since my father taught meditation, I'm kind of in the middle of the two, that I believe in free will. But if your free will impacts my existence, then that's not in my mind. You're kind of like stepping on somebody's toes. It's not up to you to have that free will that allows you to take over other people's wherewithal. So all the dictators, if it's almost like, you're going to call Ghostbusters, if that demon's coming at you, who are you going to say, well, they've got their free will. They should be able to Godzilla us all and stomp on us and have a good day because why not? And I need to find a police force that has the energetic aspects of Reiki distant healing so we can go after the people that are doing the world a disservice, like the Hitlers, like the Putins, the people that are just bombing people because they want to take over their resources so they can build a bigger army and take over the whole planet. It's
And
gone
just
on since Cro-Magnon Neanderthal, who I understand used to live in harmony in England 1,000 years ago. So I'm all for free will, but that stops at my door. Or when I drive down the street, if they're doing 65 in a school zone, somebody needs to step up and say enough. And
I just
as a civilian, if somebody tries to steal a purse from a lady, I'll stop them. I'll jump in there and say, "Wait a minute." And so where's free will in that?
Guy, can
Stopping them is
I
one
got
thing. Stopping them is one thing in that moment, but when you're stopping them, you're not changing them as a person. You're allowing them to be who they are to make their own free choices. That's different than going in and energetically changing them.
And Guy has a bunch of written material, and I've just started reading it, but I think I have a grokking maybe of the general idea of where you're going. Guy, could you either if you're willing, very simply summarize what your idea is so we could talk about it as an idea, or could I say it what I think it is?
I'd like to hear your viewpoint because I'm trying to relate that to people so they go, oh, that makes sense. And so if I'd like to hear your input so that I can either change what I'm doing and make it more succinct and more understandable.
So one of the things that you mentioned in your writing is heart math, just one example. So I've been part of a group of people doing heart math, probably some of you have been too, where we take actions about what we think about and how we breathe in a way that shifts our heart rhythm. And so our heart goes into more of coherence. And it's something where you can measure and see that we're in more coherence. And when a whole group of us are doing it in a similar space, we can impact the coherence, the heart pattern of someone over there that's not that far away from us. So what we're
Hmm.
doing and the way we're affecting the field impacts that person over there. So using a similar technique like that, can we use our capacity to, I'll just say like raise an energy, to take someone like Mr. T and raise his energy?
Hmm.
So this is the question of taking an action that impacts someone else's energy. That is, the aim is for good, right? Is to, as use more of Kai's words, help them on their journey, right? Help like the energy to help them accomplish their journey. And it's raising the energy and having them be more conscious, and they might be interested in different actions. than they're interested in right now. Now, one might have to make like a super jump in that person's energy for them to not be on their path. It might only embolden them further on the path that they're on because it's only so much you could raise it and they just have more energy to do it. But so that concept of doing something like that, or a cousin that doesn't want any woo-woo help, or right, someone that's ill, or someone like that that's making a big impact on a lot of
You
people.
have an interdiction. What's the difference? You know,
It's not to
you kind
hurt
of
them,
corral
and so
them, and
it's
everybody says, "Hey, we
just,
love you, but you need to change your behavior because you're impacting everybody. You're being
I'm
a
just
real
saying
snot."
it is not illegal. We're not aiming to hurt them, right? We're not saying
Hmm.
anything like that, but in that sense, aiming to help. So I just want this as
Well,
an
but
idea that we could talk about.
well, that's
Okay, and
and that's where, like for me, I would say no, because it has to do with the intention. It's
Mhm.
like you can send people energy all day long and whatever, but if your intention is that it's like I'm sending you this energy so that you will change to be how I want you to be, that
Mhm.
is incorrect for me.
Correct.
I prefer, it's like you can send energy and be like, use this energy however you want. Hopefully, you will use this energy in a positive fashion, but as soon as you put some sort of, you know, restriction on it, like
Stipulation.
you can
Yeah.
only use it for this or whatever, to me that's an impingement on somebody else's free will. And I'm not, and we're talking about apples and oranges. If somebody's coming in my house to rob something or break something or whatever, then that's a different story. Like that is a completely different scenario. I'm talking about if you're trying to send energy to somebody for them to change their behavior or for them to behave how you want them to behave, what you think is right, that's not right. At least not according to how I operate in the world. I mean, people can do whatever they want. You can have any kind of interaction, because to me, behavior like that causes consequences, not for them, but for me.
Mhm.
I do not want that. I need my karma card to be completely clear.
but Kai,
So,
if your guides tell you it's okay, you'll do it. And
It's
when I
from
was
the,
no,
serious, if some officer told me to shoot that guy, I couldn't shoot them unless I saw the event myself. Because if I shot him, and then they say, "Well, why'd you kill him?" Well, because this officer told me, and officer say, "Oh, I never told him anything," and they
no, my
kill
guys
me for
would never
murder.
tell me to harm another person.
No,
no.
Never.
I'm not talking about harming people. I'm talking
Yes,
about
you
killing
are. You're
Hitler
talking about shooting them and sending them energy to change them without
But
permission.
wait,
to
so
make them a better person.
do you ever see someone and you look at them in a way where you're beaming them love? Does anyone here ever do that? I
Yeah,
certainly do that.
Yeah.
Isn't that the same
yeah.
thing on a small scale?
But
No,
I always send it with
because
the
you make it available and say, here it is. If you want it, take it. If you don't take it.
right.
I'm coming from a place of I recognize you, you recognize me. Here's energy. If it helps, take it. If it doesn't, then like Kai says, in her version, it goes back to the planet. In my version, it goes back to the divine. It's not, if someone's coming and causing me harm, then that's a entirely different story. Then yeah. But if I'm judging someone and saying that I know better than you know, and I'm going to send energy to change you and fix you, no,
And I'm just going
I
to
can
play
look at
again.
what
So
happened.
if someone's coming into my house to steal,
That's
we're
different.
talking about that maybe it's okay to take an action. Well, if he's taking an action that literally next week is going to take away my health insurance, isn't that the same thing? I'm not
It's,
arguing for me. I'm just trying to come up with examples where we can talk about this.
but
Well,
see,
but then that's not necessarily personal. Like, it's like he's working
It's
from a
personal to
spreadsheet.
me.
It's not like it's, well, the person making the decision, it's not personal. It's like they're looking at a spreadsheet and going, okay, what would save
They're
the company money? So it's
well,
not like I'm picking you,
objectifying.
Lorelai, to shut
They're
off your.
objectifying and taking action on classes of people.
yes, and
So it's
I
not an
don't
individual.
agree with what they're doing, and I will protest and say I disagree. I'm not going to vote for you. I'm going to ask the people that represent me to strike it down, but I'm not going to pull a Luigi.
But like, what if so Guy, I'm just playing again. So what if instead of taking an action to impact that person that's making some decisions, what about doing some sort of energy field that's protective over people that are being oppressed?
Oh, that's a
So
tall order.
okay, so
Okay,
the other
I'm
you
just
can
I'm
day,
drop
just
bombs
making
on
up
it.
stuff.
no,
You can
so
drop bombs on a people, and if they have an iron dome, then to blow up all those bombs.
But what
But
about
from
an
what I'm saying is
energetic
for that one
protection?
dictator, when you're doing psychic surgery with somebody on the table, you're clearing out their chakras so that they'll receive energy on all these different levels. Most people in America, the bottom three chakras seem to get the most damage from abuse from their parents, from their the neighbor, whatever. And so the bottom three chakras are getting all this damage, and you can't have a spiritual progression until you get that out of the way. When you clean up all the chakras, they're receiving energy on all the levels, and they're more of a benevolent person. But it seems like dictators, they drop in because of the toxic energy of the area that they're raised in. Then they it's almost like you've got a vinyl record that's all the energy of the area is just made it so that when you drop that needle, whatever it is, you're the needle. When you
Well,
drop into that groove, you're playing that.
Guy, I want to just interrupt you for a moment because I want to watch that we don't like go off course and like we have everything go towards the specific idea.
Got it?
So let's just talk more conceptually about some of this.
Can I just throw in another angle of this? You
Sure.
can do all the healing work in the world on somebody. If they do not want to change, if they are not down with it, as it were, it might work for a little while, but they're eventually going to go back. It's like removing the entity. If they don't fix themselves, if they don't really want to heal,
mhm,
they're just going to go back eventually. And
yeah,
possibly, and especially with entities, usually in worse shape.
Yep.
yes,
So
yeah.
you can do it, but if he's not willing to change, whoever that person is, in the end, it really won't make that much difference long term.
Well, and then you accumulate karma for sending
Mhm.
energy for somebody who
Positive
doesn't want
energy.
it.
If I send positive energy and heal somebody, then why is there any negative energy coming back at me?
And the
Because you
theory that we're
sent energy,
discussing here is that if
you
they
sent,
don't want it, it's a way you're doing something against someone's will and that it could be negative impact on
yeah.
you.
Well, I view that as an attack. Like if somebody sends me energy that I do not want, that is an attack. And therefore that would be causing harm. That is what causes karma.
I mean,
Well, if you're
look,
not
let's just
sending,
say
if
like my hairstyle, right? So I have hair that I cut like this right now. So if we were talking with a bunch of people that were not all of them, but 75 and older, they might say my hairstyle is bad, it's going to make me sick, and to make me healthy, they instead would cut off all my hair because that would be better than the way I have it right now. So they would be doing it to help me,
In
but in
their
the same way
opinion.
it's imposing on me, right? It's imposing on me. So it's the same kind of thing.
but it's almost like in spiritually manifesting in as a metaphor for the physical. And here in Eugene, they have a police force. If somebody does something wrong, you call the police, and they show up and they take care of it. So if we have a lot of homeless here, and I was in a restaurant, and this guy's coming through the restaurant, and he's taking food off people's plates. So they call it the cahoots, or the local, the people that go after the people that are on whatever drug they might be on, and they kind of make sure that they're out, and the police are there to oversee to make sure they're not being harmed, but they're helping the people that are having food taken off their plate. So Kai, if you were just doing your own little thing, I would never bother you, and never come after you, never do anything to
Right.
you.
And
But if you're
But
taking
you
food off
just
my
made a
plate,
bunch of generalizations to make a point, and none of those things are totally accurate. You're saying that a homeless person comes in and starts taking food off of someone's plate, call the
yeah,
cops. You're saying that, oh, they must be high because they're doing this, so we'll treat them in a gentle way.
that's not what I said.
Yes, you did. You said
well,
they're
you
on
linked in
drugs.
drugs, and we don't know why you linked in drugs
Yeah.
because it wasn't part of the
Because
So,
initial story.
and then you keep going back to the police. That
yeah,
and then you're relating that as a spiritual metaphor. And I
yeah.
really have a problem with that, as you probably can tell.
Yeah, I was
Why?
like, we are not the police.
No, no. In fact, police, we are saying consent that there are police. And the police are supposed to react within certain limits of that consent.
Right?
Okay. So if I'm walking down the street, a cop necessarily cannot come up to me and stick a gun in my face because he doesn't like the way I look.
I agree.
Okay. So we're coming back to this thing about consent or no consent, and that obviously you feel that in certain situations you are justified to put energy on people a certain way because you think it's going to help them.
Well, and help more of us. By helping them, then it would help more of us, is
Please
your
don't put,
theory.
nope, stop that. Stop that.
Why?
Because she's talking for you and I'm not talking this. I am talking to you.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is you might have the best intentions all the way across the board, but that doesn't mean that it's the right choice to make for another person. And that's what this whole conversation's been about. Is who decides? Who decides who gets what? Who decides? Who decides?
Well, when you see, like the hands off and the indivisible, when you see
Mm-hmm.
people lining the streets and 80% of the or 73% of the population don't like what is going on in our government right now, taking
Correct.
out our Social Security, taking out our healthcare benefits, not
Correct.
looking at measles, trying to, so 80% of the people, the population says, hey, we don't like what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
who do you call?
That's what those protests are for, is for us to exercise our right to protest a grievance against our government.
And how well is that working?
I'm
It's
not going to call that yet because it's not done yet.
I'd say it's really us calling on all of us.
Yeah.
We're some of us that are willing to be more vocal and more visible are calling more of us to get more vocal and more visible. Like so Eric Holder was on Rachel Maddow the end of the week. He's he was saying how it if only a group of attorneys, the attorneys that were where there were actions against a bunch of law firms early on, instead of choosing to negotiate, it would have been so much better had they reached out to all of the attorneys and that the legal field consolidated together took an action and that they could protect themselves more as a group. And so I think people protesting is part of a call to more people to take action together as a group.
And it's also creating a vibrational rate as well. That energy exists and it's being multiplied. Um, and it's being done in a peaceful fashion, which I think is a higher vibration than what the current administration is using. I think they're massively out of touch with what's actually going on with people. You can tell just by the way they act. There's no accountability. They don't care. Um, so it's once you start using violence to solve a problem, then you've eliminated a lot of other choices. And violence has its own vibrational rate and its own energy that's not a higher vibrational rate. It's a negative one. And that feeds all the negative stuff that already exists. And when I looked at all the different reports on the protesters, even if there was 10 protesters or there was 10,000, there was camaraderie. There was friendship. There was being kind to each other. There was people saying, oh, I got water. Here you go. There's people sharing and talking. That's vastly different than coming in with guns and missiles and tanks and stuff. Again, it's a higher vibrational rate.
Right. You try and go diplomacy first, but if they don't listen to the
Well,
80% of the people that disagree with their concepts of, what this nation represents, then, they say, no, I want to be a dictator. I don't want to be part of this cause, this group event that we're trying to establish here in America by basing it on a constitution, not a king, not a dictator. So when the president that we've elected
I didn't
becomes a
elect him.
dictator, what are people to do? And if
Exactly
they,
what we're doing. They're looking for a reason to bring out guns and rifles and everything else. I don't want to go back to uh, the massacre that happened at Ohio State when the National Guard shot 4 people. I don't want to go there. And we've managed, in this particular instance at this point in time, we are managing not to do that. We are holding to a higher standard of behavior and thought. And it's going to make a difference. The higher vibration always wins. It might take time, but the higher vibration always wins.
Hmm.
Not necessarily for the short term or the medium term.
I didn't
You're
say
making an
short term.
argument for the long term.
Yes. And I'm not, the more people that are getting exposed to what's happening with this administration, there are people that are taking down their Trump stuff and they're hanging their Trump flags upside down. There are people that are quietly coming into town halls with Democrats and not being happy. There were Republican people that showed up at the protest I went to. And when they asked, are there any Republicans here? And these people were brave enough to say they were, everybody started clapping for them. They weren't booing them or riding them. They were supportive. This has been made into a partisan issue, and it's not a partisan issue. It's a humanitarian thing, is what it is. So that's why we can't say it's all, you know, just like the point Kamala Harris was making about vote for your country. This is not about party, it's about country. And when we stand in that, again, in that higher vibrational energy where we are choosing to support each other in that moment and find ways to have peaceful protest, voting with our wallets, um, coming forward for these peaceful protests. That's the avenue I want to follow.
Hmm.
As soon as I pick up a gun, somebody else is going to pick up a gun, and then it doesn't end. And it
Hmm.
doesn't end because it's the same thing when we declare war on another country. We leave that country decimated, and all that happens is the people that are left alive, do you think they think we're really cool and groovy that we left their country demolished and in pieces and all their infrastructure's gone and their young men and possibly children have been murdered and killed? That doesn't sow seeds for a positive future. And I'm not saying this is all easy or anything like that. It's not. This is freaking hard. But I again choose to take the higher vibration and hold a higher vibration as I go about my day, because that makes a difference. Every person that walks in compassion, generosity of spirit, um, lack of judgment as much as we can, you're anchoring in a higher vibrational thread to this planet and you're anchoring it in. And think of the tens of thousands of people that are doing that. You're creating a tapestry and a frequency that cannot be easily displaced, but we have to continue to do it and support it.
So I'm all for diplomacy, but don't you think before we send in bombers, it'd be more advantageous to put a task force together that does distant healing and clean up the environment of the let's say Putin and his where his Capitol building, clean up the Capitol building to make it a higher energy there, clean up all the junk that's been going on in Moscow for the last 100 years with all their dictators, and then work on Putin before he send in
But
bombers. What would keep?
If you want to
Guy,
see,
I say
if
we
you
already
want to
talked
see, if you
tonight.
want to see peace in the world, the very laws of vibration that you keep talking about, Hermetic doctrine says, if you want to see peace in the world, you start with yourself. And that creates a vibration that moves and ripples throughout the planet. You can send all the healing energy you want, but you can't force people to take it. And if you try, then that's an aggression against those people. Because
And what I
again,
just
you're
want to link in
saying,
what Angela said earlier too, that if it's not wanted, like if they're the equivalent of entities and you move them out of the space,
Mhm.
if it's not wanted for that space to be more conscious, it will get messy again and it might get even worse.
So you
It,
put it
it's
all in
easy.
the light. You put it all in the light. I pray for Putin and the Russian army. I place them into the light for healing in accord with divine order, honoring their evolutionary path for their highest good.
That's
Now,
the same thing I'm talking about doing.
no, you're not. You're saying that you directly want to push it on them and make them take it. That's different than making it available and letting them have free will to choose it.
Hmm.
And Guy, we could talk about this a little
It's
bit more
easy.
Yeah.
afterwards, I think that
Yeah.
if we don't bring something new, if we're simply disagreeing in
Mhm.
perspectives, we're not going to get anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
Angela, did you want to say something else about it too? Because I restated yours in my words.
I was just gonna take it back down a notch because again,
Oh,
we're getting too upper chakra. Let's bring it back down to earth. You can do energy work to doomsday. You can fix Trump, you can fix Putin. Big damn deal. It won't do anything. Because I said it before, I'll say it again. You haven't fixed the real issue. You
right.
want long go feed that and house that homeless person. Go volunteer for Habitat Humanity. Be boots on the ground. Go teach that child to read. Go give that homeless person a job, etc., etc., etc. Because that's what generates good feelings. That's what breaks down this fear-based attitude that people have between race and culture, etc. Share the extra food you have, your extra resources, because that's what breaks down this idea of lack and not enough that helps feed this stuff.
Mhm.
Go give that homeless, that single mother the help she needs to raise her children because it takes a damn village and it shouldn't all be on her. And that's part of the problem. If you're up here dealing with these individuals, okay, but you're not fixing the problem. You're putting a band-aid on it at best. I'm tired of band-aids. They haven't worked. History
Mhm.
tells us that. What we need is a totally different paradigm. And so far, all I'm hearing is a repeat of the same paradigm that we know doesn't work.
Mhm.
And I think we should move on at that point because I think we're all just looping at this point.
Yeah, yeah. I think one of the things that I was doing was actually working at on the energy that's undercurrent everything. So like fear and just that like hesitation that people can have and not realize that everything that they do is kind of based on that fear. And so I will send energy to that, like the general fear, malaise, or just confusion that is surrounding our planet. Then sending love to that, sending just energy to break that up, make that a little less thick. Then that way people can have an opportunity to maybe understand their situation a little better, make better choices, just kind of eat away at the fear that underlies a lot of things, a lot of behaviors, then that way they'll make better choices and do things that are not so, I guess, self-centered or self-serving, that they will be much more open to, community type behavior. So yeah, sometimes I'll do that as well.
Mhm.
Hmm.
I was saying I want to make sure Angela hears this too. I appreciate everyone's passion. I appreciate everyone's desire for good. I appreciate the conversation with each other to help us see what might be the most good. Right? This is an exploration as to how we can do what's good, how we can use the resources that we have in a way that does the most good.
Yeah. And I mean, and I think this is a perfect example of what free will looks like. Like we all have to act in accordance to whatever we feel is right, whether or not someone else agrees. And, again, whatever you choose to do, there's consequences. If you do nothing, sometimes there are consequences. If you do certain particular actions, there can be consequences. And we don't ever necessarily know what those consequences are going to be. I think everybody has to operate according to whatever their moral compass dictates. And that's just the way it is. I mean, because we are all built differently, we were all raised differently, we have different expectations, different belief systems, and we all try to do whatever we think is best. Sometimes the things we do counteract things, but we may not be aware of that, and sometimes we do it on purpose. Again, that's our choice. And so I think us having this discussion today about free will and what we will do and what we won't do, I think is a fine example of how this discussion, I mean, it happens here we are in a metaphysical community with all us enlightened people. I mean, like the general, like everybody out in the rest of the world is contemplating the same concept. And I think it's an important thing for us to recognize that there is a bigger picture in play and that we have to be aware of what our intentions are and be mindful of what we do because actions matter, words matter,
Mhm.
and we need to pay attention to, and not throw away randomly the part that we play in things.
Yeah, the whole idea of consent is really interesting for me. Though I appreciate that we talked about this. Is we talk about free will, we talk about consent, and I haven't heard the perspectives voiced today that came up here. So I'm thinking other people probably haven't either. And yeah, it's good to have this out
Yeah, I
here.
think it's a good way to kind of like, I mean, in discussions like this, like you really figure out like, what is it I believe? Like, how do I actually operate? And how, and, and how what I do, like, how does that affect other people? And I think today was a good example of how we can, like, we were each other's mirror today of stuff in terms of like, well, do you really believe that? Like, are you serious? Kind of stuff. And I think that that's a good test of who you are, what you believe in, what you want to believe in, and how we will go forward. Right? Because like a lot of times you don't realize what you believe and where you stand on things until someone challenges you on it. So wow, yeah, that was pretty intense, I
Yep.
have to say. Does
Yeah,
anybody have anything else that they want to add or any other lighter subjects we want to talk about today?
I know because we've actually gone our 2 hours, but we could go for a little bit longer. There's something else that we want to talk about
I
too.
mean, is there like a
Yeah.
question? That's the thing about these things. I never know what they're going to be. It's like, I'm expecting, okay, we're just going to have some light, fluffy conversation about something. No, not today,
Not today,
apparently.
no. And one person was possibly going to ask a deeper question, but they decided to do that a different time.
Hmm. Well, in parting shot, you might say, put in the oath of office. So when you swear and the oath to the Constitution when you're in the military, I put in there in the comments of what that oath is. So you're defending the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic. And so, but it doesn't end when you're done with the service. It just, it just kind of carries it forward. I want to make sure that this nation, based on the Constitution, lets everybody play a part and do what they need to do. But if we have some despot that internally that tries to take over the nation and take it away from us, based on the Constitution again, then I feel that we should be able to do whatever we need to do to write it and bring it back to where it's supposed to be, based on our general consensus that we need to have laws that protect everybody. And if one person disobeys the law, then we need to take care of them. Arrest them, put them in jail, keep them from affecting society. Otherwise, we're going to be like Tibet. Everybody's just happy to glad, and then China rolls over us. And that's
And
my last
And
comment.
that's your
yeah,
you're entitled to that opinion, you're entitled to that belief. I mean, for me as a metaphysical person, I look at my personal opinion is that Trump doesn't matter because I'm in the camp with Angela and it's like there are greater things at play here. So it's not about an individual, it's not even about a group. It's literally there is a greater thing that's in play and as a metaphysician, I need to look at the greater thing in play than look at the individuals enacting the little pieces. In other words, I need to look at the game, not the game pieces.
Yes.
So if some people want to focus on the pieces, they are welcome to do that. But where I'm standing, I need to look at the game. So I'm not concerned about, I mean, like, yes, all those things matter and it's going to make a difference in everyday life for everyday people. But where I'm going to send my energy is to the overall game. I'm not going to worry about where the pieces go because the universe will worry about where the pieces go. The other people who want to protest, write signs, write the letters, call their congressmen, they worry about the pieces. everybody plays their part. My part is the bird's eye view. Anybody can be wherever they would like to be in relation to dealing with whatever this issue is, but I don't need to be with the pieces. So everybody chooses and takes their place wherever they want that to be, and I'm okay with that.
Oh, okay.
So
You're telling
if
me it's
that's
all
what you
right
want to
then.
do, you can do that. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't have any problem with anybody choosing to be where they choose to be. It's like they're just no one's going to convince me that I need to be worrying about pieces because I already know that that's not my place.
And
So
and Guy, to me, the unfolding of this has shown me that the Constitution and then the process by which we have governed ourselves has so many holes.
Mhm.
And our choices, and it's a choice that a lot of us individually are making that impacts the choice that a group of us are making, right? A huge group of us. How far down this journey do we go before we potentially kind of clean things up and choose to patch a bunch of the holes?
Mhm.
So we're finding out.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and it's a journey. The whole thing is a journey. It's like we learn as we go. I mean, like when the Constitution was written, they wrote it to the best of their ability based on the knowledge they had at the time. Like here we are all these years later, things have changed. And you know, we all have different agendas on different things, and we all have different wants and different needs and all that stuff. It's a complicated issue that can't be solved overnight, and it can't be solved easily.
Is it
So in the meantime, I think for us, our job is pretty much just do the best we can with the best of intentions, and to hold the energy as high as we can so that the best of the best can rise.
you know,
Hmm.
Guy, you're aiming to take the best actions that you know how, just like each of us are,
Mm-hmm.
right? And we have this opportunity to have the discussion about it of what are the best actions and what might be the consequences that we don't realize. So you're presenting there might be consequences if we don't take actions, and we're presenting there might be consequences if you take those actions. We're all just going to do our best, and all of us individuals doing our parts, and the flow of all that together, it's going to have things are going to unfold, and we're going to find out.
Hmm. Yeah, and the issue is that a lot of it in the Constitution, they just don't enforce a lot of the laws that are already there. You say, this would be
These are
taken
these
care
are
of.
these are holes that allow all this to happen.
Yeah, I know the
Yeah.
pitfalls of words. All right, well, I've got to go put tools away because it's getting dark, and I was putting my deck together. So I appreciate all your input. Thank you very much, and I got to call it a night.
All
You're
right. Thanks for coming,
welcome.
Guy.
Thanks for your
Take care.
passion.
Being
Thanks for your care.
Toodles.
Bye.
Bye. Angela, it was very fun to feel and hear your passion there too.
Yeah, well, I have big issues with somebody that wants to change somebody against their will, no matter how good their intentions are, because you just don't know what you're messing with, truly.
I'm glad to see you, Angela, since I haven't seen you in a really long time. So I'm glad that you showed up today.
Yeah, I was excited to hear you were coming, Kai. I've been thinking about you since you haven't been around much in a while.
Yeah. And Anne, I'm glad to see you.
Yeah,
Good
I
to
came
see
in
you
there late.
guys.
You missed a whole bunch of the
Yeah,
excitement, Anne.
I'm sorry. I did miss everything. I guess I got screwed up with my time and I missed all the good stuff.
Well, it's going to be on YouTube, the MeWe YouTube, if you really want to watch it. So,
Yeah, I might do that. These are always interesting conversations. I like to see how things unfold, and I was surprised that it got to politics. Didn't think that we would go there, but it's an energy, right? So
And
Yeah,
it's
I don't
it's
think
kind of
we were
get to explore it.
intending to do that, but
and
that's
it really
just kind
wasn't
of where
even
we ended up.
politics. It really wasn't even politics as much as politics was the content that we talked about to really
Those
talk
were the
about
pieces.
energy.
It was more about whether we have a right or anybody has a right to change somebody against their will.
And what is the impact of aiming to change
Yeah.
someone against their will?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Yeah, interesting.
Right. The impact on karma, the impact of whether we could actually have the change, the impact that was wanted, or not really, or maybe things get worse, or like all those kinds of things.
well, plus, if the shoe's on the other foot, I don't want someone to decide that I need to be fixed and that they know more and they have the best intentions, but
Where's Mr. Spock when you need him?
but he suppressed his emotions. So he was doing a
Yes,
spiritual
but
Not
he would
bypass.
be the
balanced.
purely logical side. I'm only half joking because it really does comes down to does the needs of the many outneeds the weight of the one or the few. I mean, it's a timeless question, really.
So isn't it the downfall of all the previous, my understanding is of all the previous civilizations, Atlantis and Lemuria and all the others that perished was when their consciousness and their technology didn't meet. Like their technology was up here and their consciousness, they weren't they weren't equal. So then things
That's part of
crumbled.
it.
Well,
And
and that
so
we talked about that a little bit earlier on too, about how much we're in our body and how much we're grounded versus how high and spiritual we are. And are you saying that they got so spiritual and it wasn't grounded to support it? Or
I
which
don't know, but it seems like something got out of balance. But it seems like those two elements are necessary to be working and balance each other out. And there's always an imbalance, and that's what's happening now,
I
right?
link it back to what I had talked with Guy about last night, where when the crown and third eye chakras are out of balance with the heart, right? So if you're too much in the upper chakras, then you can get that very cold analytical attitude of the stereotypical engineer type, surgeon type, versus if you're too much in the heart, you become a doormat to the world. You can't be out of balance and be functional, healthy
Yeah,
functional, right?
yeah.
It's a
What
similar thing.
I think for us with the imbalance, I think that that's true, and I think that I think that's what most of us are trying to do is like just our physical presence, like being here during this time, like incarnating now, that we are attempting to balance that out a little bit so that we don't have that situation again. I mean, I don't know. Because I think, and this is just speculation on my part, that, that we, a lot of people that are alive now might have been alive during the time of Atlantis and Lemuria. And when we went back to source and we decided to come back so that we didn't do this again. um,
But we
Yeah,
so
are
I
so
think
doing
that's,
it
maybe
again
some of
because we
us are
still
being
haven't
triggered
learned.
by that, that event.
maybe.
You
What
know,
were you
I
Because
saying,
was
in
Angela?
history, we keep doing the same thing, expecting different results.
Well,
That's what history shows us.
we're horribly unbalanced with how energy works on this plane. I mean, it's all pendulum swing over to the masculine. And I don't mean men, I just mean the masculine principle. There's very little of the yin energy that's utilized so that you have the true back and forth, the flow between the two, the rhythm of that. Um, and there's arrogance. We've gotten arrogant about what we think we can do with this planet and what we think we can do with other people. Um, and I
Yeah.
think, and we keep getting flashbacks. I mean, Kai, you said it perfectly. Those that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Um,
one thing I
Yeah.
appreciate.
You got to remember, at our core, we are a prey species. We are wired to respond very fearfully as a self-preservation.
well, that's
And
true.
while our brains in some ways have developed, the reptilian brain still takes over much of the
Yes, but
time.
that's the whole point of connecting to your spiritual side so that you have discernment and detachment and you don't respond. I mean, the chemicals all go off, but you don't have to respond from that place.
No,
You,
we don't. But look at what the big players in the religious field are telling people, right? We're flawed. We have dominion over the earth. You
and
know,
that's what this
we're
community is
working
here
against
for.
ourselves.
But
Yeah.
that's what this
Well, yeah.
community is here for, is to be the alternative, to present a different energy, to present a different mindset, to
Yes.
Yeah, to
not
get them out of sheep mode.
right,
Well,
to
that's what
not
I
be
was trying to get at when
Yeah.
I was saying get out there and teach the children, get out and help
Mhm.
the single mother,
Yeah.
right? Because otherwise, we're fighting an uphill battle still. We're still the minority
Yeah,
in a
it's
lot of,
patterns. Like we're used to patterns, and so
and it
we
doesn't
fall
change
into the
easy.
patterns constantly, and so it's going to take us some effort to break the patterns, is what it is. And I think a lot of us are doing that. They're in
Mhm.
the process of doing that, but I mean, like, it's a pattern. We've been doing it for many, many years, and people are used to patterns and they're comfortable. And so when you make people uncomfortable is when things, shake up a little bit. But it's working. We're getting there. I think
The
it's just
the
a matter
other
of time.
side of it that just popped in my head, and bear with me, but it seems, not entirely obviously, but a lot of the seers and the witches and the shamans it's a lot of women heavy stuff, but society still blackballs us. So we're still working uphill, which is not to say there aren't guys, there are, and they're wonderful. But it's still, in large part, it seems like a very feminine movement, and that works against us, at least in the short term.
I don't think it's working against us. I think it's coming around that, I mean, you can see the franticness of this administration about trying to shut down the feminine. Um, and I think the people that show up to protest, men and women, I think there's a huge movement about saying, we're done with this model, with this paradigm. It's time to make a shift. Um, it's time to it's time to allow for the healing, because all this is so toxic that men are just as stuck as women are. They're not being allowed to be themselves. They've had to neuter their emotions at a very early age, and they're just as screwed in that camp as we are screwed in the other camps where we're not allowed to express who we are. But I'm seeing this whole thing since COVID. I mean, this incredible eruption of challenging all the systems. I mean, the neurodiversity that's exploded out of the gate. No one ever talked about autism or ADHD like it's happening now. Neurodiversity is being recognized as a thing, and it's happening, and it's not something to be ashamed of. The whole spectrum of sexual expression, the trans movement, the movement towards the institutions that we participate in, that there was DEI, and the fact that this administration is shutting that down, because all this stuff is burgeoning and coming up, and it's not going to go away. They're doing their best to stunt it, but it's not going to go away.
Yes, but right now it's still a battle. We're still fighting to keep it from going away.
Well, that's kind of
Those on the spectrum, we're still not wanted. I can guarantee you they're still not wanted. They're still fighting in the school system even before this administration.
yeah, I know, but
Get the educational support,
I don't
etc.
want to go there and walk around in the energy of thinking that I'm not wanted. I don't want to step into that camp. I don't want to step into the camp of that I have to be fighting all the time to make a difference or whatever. It's exhausting, and it does for me, and it doesn't change my world. What changes the world around me is when I show up as me, unapologetic, sometimes a little too much of this and a little too much of that, but that's
Just
part of my
sometimes.
charm. Um, but that's what needs to happen. I mean, when people show up and say, this is who I am, that's it. And I'm not trespassing against anybody. I'm not harming anybody by who I am. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying someone can show up and say, I'm a serial killer, you got to deal with it. It's like, no, I'm not saying that. But I'm saying that all the people are here right now, each one of us represent a very different level of our society.
Yeah.
And we come from very different backgrounds. And we've found that this path, this metaphysical path, this spiritual path, is what's important to us. And we've made a commitment to it, a commitment to our own spiritual growth, our own healing, to show up as the best version of ourselves as we are. And that's part of what I think this cosmic conversation thing was partially for as well, is to discuss different ideas and to foster people that are coming out and saying, I feel all these things and what do I do with this? How do I understand this? And I can't tell you how many people come up to me at the MeWe events and say that, or people I meet just through my practice, men and women.
A non-binary people too. Just throwing
Yes,
it
and
in there. We all talk
non-binary.
about
I'm
gender. Yeah.
non-binary. Totally, totally. Um, so I don't, again, I mean, that's just where I'm coming from. I don't want to come from a place of I have to have a chip on my shoulder and have to fight. Um, it's taken a lot just for me to show up and stop being small, let alone um going out and try to pound somebody's head so they'll see something differently. Um,
I have a question I want to link back to kind of the beginning and come through. One thing I appreciated that you said in the middle, Crystal, is you verbalized something that I was feeling, and I have a question about what I was feeling.
okay.
So you said something about the examples that Guy was bringing up, and I'm thinking about the words he was using. Early on, we were talking about the energy impact we have on each other and the energy awareness we have of each other. And so in this case, I want to talk about the energy of words and what we have connected to the meaning of different words.
Mm-hmm.
So I know I was feeling like a heaviness on me with so many examples in the military. You know, I've got whatever stories I have of the military and whatever things I have attached and connected to that. And I think simply saying the word is invoking a bunch of energy that's impacting things. And we were talking about consciousness and different things. And so I would make up a story now that the term military, like if I'm just gonna I'm wherever I am in consciousness, that the word military and the way I see it is in a different place. And so my energy is impacted when that's brought up, and it's brought up in a number of ways. Um, Anyone have comments about this? That's my
I,
model for talking about what I was experiencing.
I was in the military. I took the
I
same course
know.
that he had there. And I didn't want to say that because to me, he was already off the rails, my opinion, already. And I didn't want to bring the fact that I'd served in the military, swore that oath. And to this day, I still feel that oath. I believe in what the Constitution was made for and how it tried to make the concept of America become a reality. And yes, you're right. There's so many freaking loopholes in that thing. Like you can drive a whole convoy through there and keep going for several miles. The
And not to say even the
military,
word convoy. I know just you said convoy right there, and it actually does some of the same things. So I'm trying to figure out what is that
yes,
doing?
My
because
God, I just watched that movie last night, Convoy.
I kind of
You
love
remember
that
that
movie.
with the truckers? I
Yeah.
just watched that movie.
the archetype of the military in this country is originally patriarchal.
Yeah.
Um, and
Well, it's hierarchical, and since the hierarchy was controlled and was patriarchal,
and
and then it is. So yeah.
you are not allowed to be an individual in the military. That's
And
why they didn't want people of color. That's why they didn't want people that were gay.
well, some of the examples Guy said, and again, I was just reading this stuff the other day. He talked about some of the ways that the military creates everyone to be all connected, that even though they come in from all these places and all these things, there are ways that everyone's blended together so they'll be connected to be able to perform certain military things in connection. He was
When
bringing
I
that
was
perspective.
when I graduated basic training, I went to my training school. I got sent to my duty station. We got called in for I was like a class sort of, and it was a guy, I think he was don't know if he's a colonel or a major, but he had this propaganda to me that he was telling all of us that being a soldier was the most noble thing you could be. And it had a picture of a soldier with his gear on and a big shield, and women and children were standing behind him, and that he was taking the brunt of all this energy coming at him, and that was the optimum thing to be. And I was only 18 years old. And I said, I don't think I believe.
And they didn't kick you out immediately?
No, they kicked me out about 12 months later. Um, No, they did. I got kicked out for homosexual tendencies.
Oh,
Um, so he gave me the evil eye for that. But that's the whole thing. It's like if you join, it's like a cult in a way. And if you want to stay in there, then you have to adhere to all the things they tell you. And it's not 30-year-olds that are signing up for the military, it's
Yeah.
18-year-olds, and your brain is nowhere near done growing.
right.
And in our country, young men don't have any kind of outlet for all the energy and stuff they have. It's all the only thing they're allowed to be is angry. Um, so the military is a place where you can land and you can see um, yourself reflected in other people. And I think that energy is I think I can see why it would impact you because it's a very different kind of energy.
I
And
want to
just
go
saying the
back
word
to,
invokes, right? It's saying, so if we say
Yeah.
the word meditate, right, it has an impact on
Hmm.
our field. Yeah.
Sure. And other
it,
people hear the word meditate and they go, oh, you're just airy fairy, you're a hippie or whatever, right? So,
Yeah. So it's our own personal perspective, the cultural perspective that we have personally,
right.
but all those things and how they impact stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's
well, I mean,
interesting you brought that up, Lorelei, because again, one of the thing I mentioned to get Guy and I talked about last night was neurolinguistics
Hmm.
and
I took
how
training in that too.
words, right? So you know what I'm about to say, how words impact and how our brain processes it and how it impacts behavior, you know, for good or possibly for great ill. And I gave the example because I've been exposed to, I'm not trained in it, but I've been exposed to it. And the person that exposed me to it gave the example. He went to a class. The guy had written a book. The books are piled in the back of the room, and he does his spiel and he gets to the break and he goes, "Buy now," holding the book in his hand. "Buy now, buy now." So then he finishes, and 90% of the people run to the back of the room, and the rest of them are sitting there laughing because they realize what the guy had just did. You know, grocery stores, commercials, all of this is based on neurolinguistics. It's all mind control, to put it bluntly. And used well, it can be very healing. Therapists used it all the time in some version, whether they call it that or not. But in the wrong hands, you can get somebody to do great evil too.
That's true about most anything.
Mhm.
All tools
It-
can be used for stuff.
Mhm. I mean, you
Mhm.
can use a hammer to pound a nail, you can use a hammer to smash somebody's head in. I mean,
Exactly.
it comes down to each of us to uncover what's true for us and what brings us alignment and authenticity. Um, and again, because our society teaches us everything's external, then we go externally looking for answers instead of realizing again that it's all in here. And that's what the whole process of all of us walking our paths and the things that we've discovered and the hard work we had to do so that we could be more in alignment with who we are. Um, and there's millions of people in this country, billions of people on the planet, all eventually sit in that boat. Some never wake up. Some of them, to me, I say that the divine's asleep. They can't touch it or feel it or be in contact with it. But there's a lot of people that do. And I mean, look how much the attendance of church has dropped off. And look at how religion has become militarized. Um, I mean, it cracks me up that they've co-opted Jesus, who was not white. He wasn't blonde and blue-eyed. He was from the Egyptian area, Palestine, Israel.
Yeah.
Um,
AOC just did a good job of speaking to
right?
that, of how they've co-opted Jesus
And
and
all this
bringing in
stuff,
some other comments and phrases of like to
yeah,
use the for other
yeah.
means. Yeah.
All this stuff that they talk about, like illegal aliens and people that are poor and impoverished and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Those are the very things that he said. Well, they say he said, um, that's what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to look out for each other. We're
And
supposed to help those who are less enfranchised than we are.
I want to bring back one other thing that we often talk, or you two often talk about, and go back to these words, or even when we talked earlier about the energy levels, right, or consciousness of different people and how we impact each other. We're typically, right, pull down and pull up. So if I choose to energy shield myself in such a way, I could keep myself from being impacted as much by those words, or I could keep myself from being impacted as much by the consciousness of the people that I'm around. So, in terms of working with lots of students, I could choose to have a filter where I'm able to perceive what's happening with them and pick up what's going on, and at the same time, not let it in to impact my energy as much. Or
Absolutely.
whatever,
Absolutely. Yeah, like you can have a like build that into your shield where you can like be able to take in the information from a standpoint of like what is actually being said, like the actual words and not the energy that accompanies them.
Right.
And then, then you can work with it from a mental perspective and not necessarily from an emotional perspective or from an energy perspective. And the thing is too, is like if you find that particular words actually do kind of like hit you a certain way, then and that would be something to look at. Like, like military. I mean, because to me, convoy is like when I don't think when I hear that word, like for me, the association is not military. It's like 18 wheelers.
And
Truckers.
You know what I
I
mean?
am
That's
so
that's my
sensitive.
association.
I'm
Yeah,
so
me too.
sensitive today to this that even when you said hit you a certain way, the hit is impacting me. Like I am so sensitive today
Okay.
Well, and
with
that
those
makes sense
words.
though, because you've also been ill. And so your
Yeah.
energy system is kind of wonky and it's still trying to like, get you healthy. So your energy system is working more towards your health, your physical being, more so than this external thing. So that makes perfect sense. Because yeah, I'm the same way. Like if I don't feel well, then yeah, everything literally comes at me and I'm like, what the heck is that? Um, and well, actually, the funny thing is, since you mentioned it, I was at the Hawaiian festival yesterday,
Yeah.
and I was sitting next to this older lady who was in a wheelchair with her. I think her grandson was sitting behind her, and it just so happened that her daughter has a hula group called, she's a kumu hula. She teaches hula, and her group was dancing, and the woman was saying that the dance her troupe was going to do now was like her mother's favorite song. And it was like she goes, oh, get out your Kleenexes and blah 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 blah. And so she was basically doing this as a dedication to her mother, right, who was sitting next to me. And I was like, oh, that's nice, because usually I'm not very emotional, right? I'm just not really that person. But she was sitting next to me, and while they were doing this thing, and then the woman who was the kumuhula was dancing with her troupe for a little bit, then she came over and she like, talked to her mother, and somebody gave her a lei and all that kind of stuff. And like the woman next to me, like she like burst out with so much love that it like I was sitting there next to her and I started crying.
Wow.
Me who never cries, my sister's crying, the people in back of us are, I mean, like she literally blasted out this energy. And so like, I don't know, like people around us within 5 feet of us, everybody was crying.
Wow.
I was like, holy cats.
Wow.
So yeah, like you can have
Hmm.
that kind of effect without realizing it, because that's how closely and I mean, we knew her, but she was like, at this point, she's old enough where she doesn't remember people.
Mm.
And so we sat next to her and, we were, it was fine, but we were like, oh, it's okay, whatever, I'll just let her be. But yeah, she burst out with so much love. After that, it was like, whoa. So yeah, we can have an impact on each other, and words definitely do matter as long as we understand that there's words and that there's energy that accompanies those words. So if you want to like be able to and it was funny because even during this conversation, I was like, okay, I need a shield here because this is starting to get on my nerves. And and then after that, I was like, okay, I'm good. Because I literally just blocked the energy that was accompanying the words. And I'm like, I can ignore the words all day long. It was the energy that I couldn't I was just like, what the hell? And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, shield. So yeah, that is a very important thing. It's like it's not just about the words, it's also about the energy of the words and the energy we associate with those words. So if there are certain words that are very you know, that affect us in a way that we don't understand, then that warrants
Well,
exploration, I
and
think.
we can consciously choose certain kinds of words to have the impact that we want.
Yeah.
If there's nothing
And
that
then the
anyone else,
definitions
go
are
ahead.
changing too. You know, the
Mm-hmm.
dictionary is
Mm-hmm.
is now, using different words with different definitions than that they were different just a few years ago, based on the agenda and how they want us to perceive those and what energies they want us to attach to those.
And sometimes
So
people reclaim words, and depending on who says the words, it has different meaning. Yes, all
yeah.
kinds of things.
Yeah.
I have a totally tangent thing I can say, but it's totally tangent if everyone's. I know we're getting ready to wrap up. So in some ways, I'm weaker, having been sick. We've talked about that a few ways. One way in which I was strong, which was a great learning opportunity while I've been sick, is a day ago, 2 days ago. I've lost track. It's blowing my nose, and it's gotten the mess. I'm kind of thick, and I was just like blowing my nose hard. And when I did, and I know it was on this side of me, um, the crystals in my ear, I believe, started to do a little jiggling around, and I started to like, oh, and dizzy, and the twirling of things in front of me on the computer. And the thing I immediately thought, well, I did what I did, and then the thing I immediately thought of is Matt in his work. We're talking about just Newcastle Oracle, Matt Young. He teaches that in order to heal someone, you have to command. I've heard him so many times talk about this of command, and like I haven't really let myself wander into it. It's like a little uncomfortable. And so when this happened to me and it started doing, I was just like, no, so strong. And immediately things just went and settled back down. And then I was like, oh, Matt, maybe this is the idea. Maybe I had an entry into what this is from. So anyway, so I'm weaker while I'm sick. And heck, I found some strength too.
Well, you've
Is
also
Matt the Oracle guy? Is that the Newcastle
Yeah, Newcastle
Oracle?
yeah.
Oracle. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the commands really work. Like I do rebuke with Jesus' name, and like just the energy of that, if it's some energies that I want to immediately get rid of, after those words, like they just disappear. They completely dissolve.
So I have to let the energy of the force through me, the command through me. What were you going to say, Crystal? It looked like you were going to say something.
I was going to say that you've also gone through a lot of emotional um,
That's true.
transitions in the
Huge
past.
emotional stuff over the last. Oh my gosh, yes. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
and that makes it
Wow.
different too because it's your frequencies bouncing around, you're shifting, you're like, what is this? What is that? What fits? What doesn't fit? I mean, all that takes energy as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably why I felt like I've been getting better, and today I feel kind of a little like I'm going backwards. And yeah, it's true. I just the last 24, 48 hours have been huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess like 48-ish. Yeah, 48, 72 hours. Yeah. All
Yeah.
right. Well, is there anything else we want to do before wrapping up today?
Hey, Kai, if you
Yeah,
have a few minutes, I'd like to talk to you about something privately at
sure.
some
Okay,
point.
great. We will do that after we get the recording up. So yeah,
Lorelai?
anything else we want to do before we finishing up our recording?
No,
Well, how
I'm
about
good.
Kai, Crystal, and let's go around and just say again who we are and how people can reach out to us if they've managed to make it all the way to the end of this video.
Oh, that's
I'm
true.
I'm Lorelei Shimayo. I'm an intuitive eye reader, and you can find out more about me at intuitiveeyereading.com. And you can find out more about all of the events I run at MeWeFairs.com. If you want to learn about the archetypes that I read in people's eyes, that's at thrivetypes.com. And I have a class on learning to read eyes. I'm in the middle of teaching it right now, and it's all available recorded. And next week, I talk about me and the knowledge talent this week on Tuesday.
Oh,
Okay, anyway, that's about me. Who else wants to go?
hi.
You're each looking at each other.
Well, I'm Kai. I'm a Hawaiian Kahuna, which is the Hawaiian version of a shaman. You can learn more about me and all my stuff on my website, which is handsonfire.buzz, HANDSONFIRE.BUZZ. And yeah, that's me.
Okay. Well, my name's Crystal Novak. I'm a psychic, conscious channel, do energy work. I'm also do short-term coaching and mentoring as well. You can reach me at crystal@iknowstuff.me, or you can visit my website at www.iknowstuff.me. And hopefully, if you've watched this whole video, that it was great and you enjoyed it. And maybe you'll attend another cosmic conversation.
And it'll probably be a little more calm next time. That was the most intense it's gotten, but heck. And our next one is planned for Tuesday, May 20. And yeah, so we've been doing them about once a month, and we're open to talking about whatever is here, whatever comes up. Thank you for the passionate conversation from the audience today. It was very fun. Appreciate all the perspectives and everyone's insight and everyone's passion. Well, thanks so much, and we'll see you again soon.
Glad to be here. Thank you.
Thanks, Ann.